The story begins with the main character flying on a plane to do some shopping on an errand. In other words, he helps people buy products that they cannot buy. The guy's name is Jin Woo-Zhu. He is currently in his second year of college and works part-time as an international purchasing agent. The smart young man did everything possible to earn as much money as possible. Working bravely in his position, he put a lot of effort into wanting to get rich. After completing this task, once he can sell the batch, who will be able to earn a lot of money. Suddenly, someone behind turned to the hero and asked him to wait. The mysterious man turned to Mr. Jin, because he was suspected of illegal trading, and was ordered to go to another room. Realizing the hopelessness of the situation, the guy began to panic very much and was afraid of the consequences of such suspicion. Caring Jin Woo-Zhu decided to warn his boss that he was stopped at the airport. The rich lady was shocked that her limited edition lipstick from Tom Ford, as well as the latest edition of Black Opium perfume and CRV highlighter were confiscated. Starting to cry, the guy continued to make excuses, saying that he did not know that something like this could happen, and immediately began to apologize. In fact, boss admitted that it was not his mistake and asked the guy to return her $200,000 that she gave in advance. Experiencing severe stress, the guy's heart literally burst out of his chest, because he used these $200,000 to buy what was ordered, and now he doesn't have that kind of money. The angry girl immediately hung up the phone conversation and was ready to take action. With a snap of her fingers, she called Zhao Kai and Qin Bao to resolve this conflict. Instantly, the guys who were called by the boss came up to her and were obediently ready to carry out any order. It turned out that the boss ordered Qin Bao and Zhao Kai to find the main character, then bring him to the girl and sell him to another country so that he could pay off his debts. Some time later, Jin Woo-Zhu sat with his eyes closed in an unknown place, and did not even imagine what would happen to him. Having opened his eyes, the guy did not understand what was happening, and wanted to understand where he was after all. There were abrasions on his face, and it was clear that the mercenaries had abused him very much while he was unconscious. In any case, the guy was not worried about this at all, but about the fact that his hair was ruined, and it cost as much as 500 yuan. One of the kidnappers wanted to light a cigarette and apologized to the handsome guy. After all, the situation was such that they wanted to explain to the guy that their boss wanted him to pay off a debt of $200,000 with his body. Therefore, their brother must perform one operation on Jin Woo-Zhu, and then they will sell him to Thailand as a slave. The scoundrels did not want to waste too much time, and having taken out a knife, they were about to begin the operation. Feeling hopeless in this situation, Jin Woo-Zhu began to cry and scream for mercy and release. Suddenly, the guy remembered that he could mortgage the house, and then they wouldn't kill him. Some time later, he was released, but the young man understood that he had not been in this house for many years, and it was associated with many memories. Realizing that this was his only chance, Jin began to open the door lock, even though it was a little rusty. Having opened the door, the guy immediately had a flood of memories, because he remembered that his grandfather lived here. Sighing heavily, he also understood that he first needed to clean up here in order to mortgage this apartment as payment for the debt. I cleaned diligently. He did not miss a single area, and did everything possible to make the house as clean as possible. After a few hours, incredible fatigue set in, and Jin already very much regretted that he had not hired a cleaner earlier. But at that same second, he was surprised to discover a mysterious door that was not far from him. Having opened it, an unknown entrance was discovered, which had aroused great interest since childhood. Even as a child, this door was sealed and it was never possible to enter. A little boy used to ask his grandfather what the door was because he wanted to enter an unknown room to play there. With a smile on his face, the grandfather explained to the boy that immortals live in this room. Even from his memories, Jin Woo-Zhu understood that his grandfather loved to joke. Suddenly, the seal that was placed on the door began to fall sharply, as if it had been torn off by someone. A moment later, it began to burn, as if someone had set it on fire intentionally. This phenomenon caused great anxiety in the guy, because he had never seen anything like this before. Soon, an unknown magical seal began to form under him, which gradually surrounded him. It was then that the guy who couldn't even imagine where he would ended up in the kingdom of heaven. Light silhouettes of magical energy surrounded him, like an aura that teleported to an unknown world. He couldn't even believe his eyes, because Gutsheeli, this is the place where the immortals live that grandfather spoke about. Suddenly, a huge blade began to fly right next to the guy, and with every second it was getting closer. This phenomenon frightened the young man even more, who already did not understand where he was. Fortunately, the blade did not hit its target, but only not far from it, but still, even such a blow caused a serious explosion, and pushed the hero away. It turned out that the person who threw the blade was very close and was also approaching. The mysterious stranger asked Jin Woo-tsu, considering him a robber, how he dared to invade the heavenly kingdom. The unknown possessed magical techniques, and he wore armor like a knight. Taking Jin by the hand, the mysterious guy began to rise into the air and literally fly above the ground, which caused the hero even greater anxiety. Some time later, events continued to occur in the heavenly palace. Residents of the heavenly kingdom came to the palace to tell their leader about what had happened. The leader was the young Jade Emperor who sat on the throne and wanted to listen to the people who came to him. That same mysterious guy reported to the Jade Emperor that he had caught the intruder and wanted to know what the orders would be. This statement greatly surprised the Jade Emperor, because he did not understand how a person could penetrate their kingdom. What he saw caused disappointment for the main character, because he did not believe that this was the legendary Jade Emperor, because he was short and fat. It turned out that Jin expressed his dissatisfaction out loud, but the Emperor did not show it and tried not to get angry. But then, the Emperor still shouted that whoever this guy was, he should be pulled out and beaten 3,000 times, although no, better than 30,000 times. Another guy who was not far from the Emperor asked him to calm down. After all, this young man was an old friend of his faithful subject, which is why it is necessary to spare the guy. In fact, this guy did not know Jin Woo-tsu, and was happy to meet him. This caused even more shock for the main character, because he couldn't even imagine where he would see this guy. Realizing that his old acquaintance did not remember him, the mysterious guy decided to show his mortal body. Using magical seals, the mysterious young man began his transformation, and gradually changed his appearance. A few seconds later, the young and mysterious young man turned into the grandfather of the main character, who stood and looked at his grandson with a smile on his face. This phenomenon caused genuine surprise in Jin, because he did not understand how this was even possible. After which, grandfather turned into a young man again, and was glad that Woo-tsu finally recognized him. Instantly, the grandfather began to run to his grandson, and shouted to give him the opportunity to hug himself as quickly as possible. Jin Woo-tsu did not like this behavior very much, and he hit the guy in the face who wanted to hug him. And immediately after this, suspecting something was wrong, the hero wanted to find out how this guy actually dares to impersonate his grandfather, because he had long since died. Then the grandfather explained to her that, in fact, his grandson was mistaken, and he did not die, but became immortal. Now Grandpa is a monk, and 50 years ago he changed the law of thunder and broke through the heavenly calamity. Although it was risky, it was worth it. After all, in this way, he was able to break through the heavenly calamity and gained enough qualifications to ascend to the immortal level. But Grandpa decided to do nothing until Grandma died. Only then did he give up his mortal heart and become a flying immortal to enter the heavenly realm. With tears in his eyes, the grandson knelt down and began screaming that he really missed his grandfather. The Jade Emperor was surprised by this story, because the guy turned out to be a descendant of Zi Xian, which is why he was ordered to shave his hair, erase his memories and return to the human world. Suddenly, grandfather told his majesty that he had a proposal, because Zi Xian lived in the human world for 50 years and realized that the human world is changing rapidly, while the heavenly world remains unchanged for thousands of years. Jin Woo-tsu has a rare immortal body in the three realms, which can enter the heavenly realm and the human world at will. Then they could act as a bridge between the two realms and open the heavenly realm to new things from the human realm. The heavenly guard was not satisfied with such a proposal, because he understood that the heavenly kingdom was strictly guarded, and they could not maintain contact with people. Suddenly, the Jade Emperor exclaimed that this was a really good proposal and he approved it, and Zi Xian should arrange it immediately. Only the knight was not satisfied with this, and he did not like the fact that objects from the real world would fall into their world. Some time later, events continued to occur in the magical gorge on the heavenly platform. The grandson wanted to find out from his grandfather what he meant by putting forward such a proposal. The smart grandfather knew that Woo-tsu was engaged in small business, and by purchasing on behalf of the human world, he would be able to stand out in the heavenly world. And, turning to his grandfather, the young man immediately wanted to know what he was getting at. As it turned out, Grandpa wanted his grandson to open the incomparable heavenly store here. After all, the whole point was that the gods cannot descend to earth, and mortals cannot step into heaven, and he is the only one who can enter the heavenly human worlds. And also, the hero has been working as a buyer long enough to understand what this means. All this meant that he could monopolize trade between the two worlds and gain enormous wealth. Starting to cry with happiness, the hero was simply glad that he could finally get rich. Also, the mansion that grandfather left before his ascension connects the two worlds, so he can use it as a store. At that very second, Jin Wuzhu realized that he had forgotten that this old mansion would already be handed over to the mafia. The young man began to beg his grandfather, after all, if he is a divine immortal, he must teach him magic, just some kind of strong magic, so that he can send the mafia to hell. Sighing heavily, grandfather agreed and began training his pet. Concentrating, the elderly man asked the young man to listen carefully, because after reading this formula, he will be able to break through the boundaries of his mortal body in half an hour. This formula can only be used once a day, and this must be remembered. These are only 4 words and they must be used in combination with the appropriate movements, so you should listen as carefully as possible. The first gesture was to raise the hands up, and it was necessary to shout hallelujah. It was necessary to do as grandfather did, although Jin Wuzhu felt great shame when he said hallelujah. Some time later, events continued to occur in the real world. The boss asked her subordinates what these two were doing, and how they could even lose a person. The mercenaries searched everywhere for the main character, but could not find him anywhere. After listening to the report of her people, boss still didn't understand how Wuzhu was still able to escape, but since he did it, then his house must be taken away. A few minutes later, they finally arrived at the main character's house to inspect it. Instantly they saw that the house was really very old and needed major repairs. Suddenly, Wuzhu came out of the house and immediately greeted the villains, because he understood that they wanted to take his house. Turning to them again, the guy said that this house was not for sale and apologized to them. The mercenaries were happy about this outcome of events, because they saw that Jin had returned home. The arrogant girl shouted to the scoundrels to quickly teach the guy a lesson and force him to give up his house. The ruthless Zhao Kai and Qin Bao were ready to destroy this guy so that he would give up all his property in order to pay off the debt. Smiling, Jin Wuzhu asked them if they had enough strength to take the house. Swinging his fist with all his might, the guy dealt an incredibly strong blow to the enemy, and thereby neutralized him with just one blow. The mercenary's comrade was surprised by such skills, and could not even imagine how an ordinary guy could defeat a trained fighter with one blow. In any case, the same fate awaited the second criminal, and the main character began to fight without sparing him. Swinging straight at the villain, he was getting closer every second to strike straight at the head. The opponents fell in a fair fight, and could not do anything at all in this situation, because they were much weaker. Turning to the boss, the hero told student Shen that these were her strong bodyguards, and they lost to an ordinary guy in battle. The alarmed girl just continued to look at the ordinary guy, and did not understand when he managed to become so strong. Strong bodyguards, whom no one could defeat before, lay unconscious on the asphalt. In any case, for the main character this was just the beginning, and he wanted to continue the conversation with the boss. Fearing the consequences, Shen now did not understand what this guy would do to her. The smart young man asked the girl if she could calm down and talk to him. After all, he is going to return the money with interest in 2 months, and as for this house, enemies cannot even dream about it. I understand that the situation is hopeless. Shen still decided to give the guy 2 months. Pinching the girl's cheek, the hero praised her, saying that she was indeed very intelligent. Returning to his apartment, the guy thought about the fact that his grandfather had not lied to him, and this plan actually worked, and even Miss Shen retreated temporarily. However, now Jin Wuzhu still found himself in a hopeless situation. But now is not the time to despair. If he seizes this opportunity, then the heavenly store will be his. Appearing again in the heavenly world, the guy was extremely surprised at the changes that had been carried out there in his absence. Looking around, the hero discovered pleasant innovations that appeared quite recently. What surrounded him was truly impressive, because he had never seen anything like it before. Suddenly, someone exclaimed to him to stop, and an unknown object at high speed began to fly away towards Wuzhu. It turned out that it was a guard knight who asked the guy why he invaded the heavenly kingdom. But an old acquaintance still recognized a guy who had previously made his way to the heavenly kingdom and wanted to create his own store here. After all, he found himself in an important place in the heavenly kingdom, so he should leave it, otherwise the knight was not going to show mercy. The smart guy reminded that the Jade Emperor had just given him a decree, and he could move freely between the two worlds without any restrictions, and if the knight was not afraid of breaking the law, it could hit him. Instantly the knight approached. Jin Wuzhu even began to be afraid of him, because in fact he was joking, and asked the guard not to be angry with him. The cunning hero said that he admires brother Xiang Yan because even the famous Sun Wukong cannot compare with him, because he is the only one worthy of admiration in this heavenly realm. Sun Wukong was a Chinese literary character of the King of the Monkeys, who possessed supernatural strength. The guardian asked not to praise him so much, because he was not worthy of it. According to Jin Wuzhu, Xiang Yang was not even inferior in strength compared to Erlin himself. The guards respect him, but even if the Jade operations are his relative, he does not flatter him. The guard liked these statements extremely much, because he really hated flatterers, and considers flattery beneath his dignity, but he is not devoid of dignity. Hearing this answer, the guy immediately realized that even immortals love flattery. Suddenly, behind the hero, someone began to bark very loudly, like a dog that had made its way into the heavenly world. At that same second, a portal began to open, which was supposed to teleport someone. And this was really so, and a dog looked out from the portal, who was very glad that he was here. The joyful dog instantly began to run towards people to delight them with his presence. Suddenly, the cute little dog began to turn into a human, and Xiang Yang immediately greeted him, asking if he really came to see him. What he saw really amazed the hero, because he could not have expected that animals would instantly begin to turn into humans. It turned out that this creature is actually a heavenly dog that can peacefully exist in the heavenly world. The sight was truly extremely amazing, because the guy had never seen anything like this before. This creature was very similar to a person, but only small, and behaved like a child. Suddenly, Xiang Yang realized that Jin Wuzhu had guessed what kind of dog he really was. The main character did not expect that it would be the same heavenly dog from the legends, because it is truly a unique animal. The dog was really very cute, and the guy couldn't even imagine that he would look like that. Instantly, Wuzhu began to reach out to the cute dog in order to scratch him behind the ear, but the creature clearly did not like it. The alarmed knight immediately began to dissuade him, so that nothing terrible would happen. The dog clearly did not like this outcome of events, and he began to get extremely angry, because he did not allow anyone to pet him. With all its strength, the small creature bit Jin Wuzhu, letting him know that it did not want to be friends with him. Screaming in pain, the hero literally begged for the dog to let him go, but she did not want to give any concessions, and with all her strength she held his hand with her teeth. Fortunately, the knight still decided to save the guy and took the dog so that it would no longer cause harm to an ordinary person. The heavenly knight could not understand how the heavenly dog could bite an ordinary person, and why he did it at all. Jin Wuzhu also didn't understand how this heavenly dog dared to do this, because now the guy doesn't even have money for rabies injections. It turned out that Xiang Yang was worried that these people were very dirty, and the heavenly dog might catch some strange disease and be in trouble. The hero was furious because he finally realized that the knight said this precisely because he believed that people were dirty. In any case, the guard still had work to do, so he ordered the heavenly dog to go back. Not realizing the reason why the dog came here, the guardian began to ask him why he still came down here, because maybe he really caught the infection from biting this guy. Listening to their conversation, Jin Wuzhu exclaimed that this was impossible. He used to work in a veterinary clinic, and the dog was probably hungry. Xiang Yang immediately exclaimed that this was impossible, because earlier this morning he had left a peach for the heavenly dog. The smart guy immediately objected, because they don't feed dogs peaches, because this is not a monkey, and if there is neither fish nor meat, then dog food is quite suitable. The knight did not know about the new dish for dogs, and wanted to find out what dog food was, although the heavenly dog already liked it very much. Smiling, the hero explained that dog food is the food that they, people, give to their dogs. The food not only matches the tastes and preferences of his dog, but also contains nutritional supplements, protecting against diseases, and is an excellent way to maintain the health of the dog. Even the coat becomes smooth and shiny. Coming closer to the hero, the guardian wanted to know how much of this dog food there is in the human world, because he wants to take all the food. Winking at the heavenly guardian, the guy said that he would be pleased to help in this situation, but dog food in the human world is very expensive, and he is now broke. After searching for money in his pockets, Xiang Yang wanted to know what the value of their goods was in the human world. Having given away a bag with unknown contents, the knight exclaimed that in the human world it should cost a lot of money, the rest would be for services. After which, Xiang Yang ordered the hero to go immediately in order to get dog food. Looking at the extracted resources, the hero was only happy that he managed to get rich from just one transaction, and he was going to go for food. Meanwhile, an unknown person flew up and exclaimed the name Jin Wu-tsu. It was his grandfather who oversaw the deal that had just been completed. As it turned out, the grandfather had something for his grandson, a certain gift that he brought. Seeing the unusual gift, Wu-tsu immediately thought that this thing was worth a lot of money. As it turned out, the pendant contains the power that connects the two worlds, and all he needs to do is say the spell that they had previously learned, and so in this way he will be able to use the power of the gift. After thanking his grandfather, the grandson took the pendant and exclaimed Hallelujah, just as his mentor had previously taught him. And it really worked, because as soon as he said the phrase Hallelujah, teleportation to another world immediately occurred. Turning to his grandfather, the knight asked if he really put teleportation magic into this necklace. Having decided to clarify the situation, the grandfather said that his grandson was incredibly stubborn, he did not know the local laws, and in the future, it was necessary to be more lenient towards him. Hearing of such a request, the guardian exclaimed that as long as he controlled himself and did not do anything unusual, he would not make life difficult for him. Immediately after this, Xiang Yang began to call the heavenly dog, because he was going on a trip. Taking him in his hand, the guard said that they were now leaving and would continue to guard these areas. Some time later, events continued to occur in Megapolis. The carefree protagonist walked down the street past ordinary people, but they had no idea that this guy could move between the heavenly world and reality. Approaching the required place, he immediately noticed that he was not far from his destination. His joy knew no bounds, because now he realized that the necessary goods should be here. As it turned out, he had actually arrived at Li's jewelry store and was about to enter. Entering inside, Jin Wu-tsu began to choose jewelry for himself, which he had had his eye on for a long time, but at that time he was poor. At the same time, some girl inside the store was choosing a bracelet for herself and said that it suited her very well. Turning to her boyfriend, the unknown girl wanted to know if the bracelet was right for her. The young man in love only said that everything suits his girlfriend, and any decoration will do. The seller in the store immediately responded to the chosen product, saying that the girl has really very good taste. This is the best jade of all types, made by professional jade carvers. Only today this jewelry costs 38,000. Watching everything that happened, the hero meanwhile thought that he did not expect that he would be fed to his fill with dog food even before he could buy it. The girl's husband immediately drew attention to the guy who was standing behind and was watching them. Turning to the seller, the guy asked him if he accepted jewelry in the store. The stranger did not like the way Jin Wu-tsu looked and exclaimed that he could not have any jewelry with such a poor appearance, and should not be bothered when he was buying things for his wife. The girl also shouted that this guy needed to be kicked out of here as quickly as possible, otherwise her mood would deteriorate and she would have to refuse the purchase. But the seller decided to listen to the guy, saying that they only accept high-end items, and if he has any copper coins and the like, then it is better to go to the second-hand market. Putting his hand in his pocket, the hero said that he did not know anything about the second-hand goods market. However, whether this treasure would be accepted from him or not depended only on the store. After digging a little in his pocket, the boy got the blood that the heavenly guardian had previously given him. Assuming that these were ordinary copper coins, the seller was skeptical about this product and began to look at it. Looking closer, he saw what kind of unique product was in the hands of this young man. This was truly impressive for the seller because he had never seen anything like it before. Stunned, the experienced seller exclaimed that this was a mermaid's tear. The stranger also thought it was something worthwhile, but in reality it was just a broken pearl. In a polite tone, the seller said that they were not selling anything today, which is why he asked the customers to leave the store. The arrogant guy could not understand why he was now being denied the sale of jewelry, because they came here before this homeless man. Having started to make trouble, the scoundrels finally left the main character and the seller alone in the store. Some time later, an experienced seller began to ask the young man where he got these pearls from. Jin Wuzhu did not want to talk about his origin, and said that this was not the business of an ordinary seller, and he would not talk. However, smiling, the young man understood that the seller clearly knew the history of this pearl. For many years, his family had been hunting for treasure, and this was one of the treasures they had coveted for so long. And this pearl that the guy brought is called a mermaid's tear, and is an extremely rare treasure. According to legend, these are the hardened tears of mermaids who once lived in Zhongnan Hat, and they are very expensive. Not expecting such an answer, the hero asked the seller whether he really believed in these fairy tales, and also wanted to clarify whether he believed that giants exist. But the seller believed that it was better to believe than not. The fact that he did not see any ghosts or spirits does not mean that they do not exist. A rebel named Jin Wuzhu did not care about these spirits, and he only wants to find out how much a mermaid's tear is worth. With the help of his hand, the seller decided to show how much this treasure was worth. Then he asked if this price suited the main character. Hearing such an offer, the guy was in no hurry to agree, because 3,000 was a very small amount for him. But in fact, it was 300,000, because the treasure was indeed very rare and unusual. This proposal really inspired the guy, and he was extremely glad that this unusual pearl was worth so much. The seller knew that 300,000 was not much, but it was a fair price. Besides, ordinary stores do not understand such goods, and if he does not believe, he can go and see for himself. After thinking a little, the guy exclaimed that 300,000 is really not enough. However, now he still needs money, and he will sell this pearl at that price, as to a good friend. The smart salesman really liked being friends with straightforward and honest people, although he still had to tell the guy something. After all, he doesn't know where he got these pearls from. However, no one has similar pearls, but if he has some other similar things, then it's better not to show them to anyone, because the fewer problems, the better. Some time later, the events continued again on the streets of the giant megalopolis. Walking through the streets, the hero looked around, and was really happy that he was able to make such a good deal. As he thought about the deal, he also realized that this shop owner realized that this pearl was not from the real world, but none of that mattered anymore. Because now he already has 300,000 in his account, and the deal was really successful. A few days later, events continued in the heavenly realm, where a teleportation portal was gradually created, through which someone began to penetrate. The entire process was observed by the heavenly guardian, who carefully inspected the territory so that not a single stranger would enter the kingdom. It turned out that the main character again teleported to the heavenly world, and announced that he had come again. Smiling, Xiangyang realized that this was again the guy who promised to bring dog food. Instantly, the heavenly guardian teleported away and told the guy that he hoped that he would not disappoint him. After which, he still decided to ask if the hero brought what he asked for. The joyful Jin Wuzhu said that first the knight should calm down, because he is here only for him. Because of this, he took a backpack to the heavenly world to bring here the goods that were previously ordered. First the hero brought a bowl that was intended for his dog, and it is very expensive. And in the bag there was dog food, which was intended for the heavenly dog. The guard understood that the sky dog was a very picky eater, and wanted to understand how he could like these mud balls, which are called dog food. Without doubting his choice, the guy said that now the guard would see everything with his own eyes. Pointing his finger at the sky dog, he exclaimed to make the guardian look at him. Looking back, Xiangyang couldn't understand when the dog managed to come to them, because he didn't even notice it. The heavenly dog really liked the chosen food, and with incredible speed he began to eat every last crumb. Shocked, the sky guardian admitted that the dog actually eats this food and seems to really like it. Zhu understood that after all, dogs are dogs, and they cannot resist the temptation of this special royal dog food. Looking at this food, the heavenly guardian guessed that it was a delicacy that the heavenly dog really liked, and it must be very expensive. The dog liked the food so much that the dog ate every last crumb, without leaving a single gram of food. Without thinking twice, the guy exclaimed that this was truly a delicacy, and he was able to buy this food only with the pearl that was given to him. For the night, this was a small payment, and it meant that the food was not that expensive, which is why he decided to take it, and when Jin Wuzhu needed it, the guard would call him to bring the food again. The hero was only happy with such cooperation, and with a wink, he said that in the future he would be provided with food supplies for the heavenly dogs. A few minutes later, as soon as the deal was completed, the hero decided to take a walk around the area to inspect the territory. Raising his head up, he admired the views, because the kingdom of heaven was truly incredible. The huge golden arches with magical seals and the architecture really impressed the guy, because he had never seen anything like it before. Also, he could not believe that he, Jin Wuzhu, was doing business with immortals. Suddenly, a bright ray of light began to pierce his body, and came straight from the heavens. This color wrapped around the main character, like a fire that gradually surrounded him. Feeling free fall, he realized that these magical abilities might have something to do with the southern gate. But as soon as the magic ended, the guy immediately began to fall, and understood that now everything would end, because he didn't even have the skill of flying. While in free fall, he felt the sensation of falling suddenly disappear. Instantly he felt that he could now fly, and was no longer afraid of falling and dying. Looking at the territory that was not far from him, the guy could not understand what kind of place it was where he ended up. Approaching the castle, he wanted to take a closer look at it and understand who it belonged to. In his opinion, this place was indeed very beautiful and impressed his eyes. Walking across a gigantic square, through many steps, the hero immediately approached the entrance to the building. But still he did not understand why there was absolutely no one around, because all this way he had not met a single person or immortal. Realizing that it would be impolite to enter without knocking, Wuzhu began knocking on the door, hoping that someone would open for him. However, there was a hole in the wall through which one could see what was inside the building. It turned out that there was a girl there who was taking a bath in the hot springs. With joy, the guy continued to admire the beauty of the girl and watched her through a small hole. Her beauty was amazing, and with every second he enjoyed the girl more and more. Suddenly, someone put his hand on the main character's shoulder and asked why he was here, and how he even dared to spy on the celestial Chang'e. Not understanding what was happening, the hero asked in surprise who this celestial being Chang'e was. But the guard remained silent, and only kept his huge hand right on the hero's shoulder. The guard-shaped creature was indeed very impressive, like some kind of dog. With a threatening look, the guard asked the hero what he had just told him. In fact, this guard also had ears, so he was not a dog. The main character was extremely amused by this, and he could hardly contain his laughter. But still he could not restrain himself, and began to laugh with all his might, asking why this heavenly hair is so strange. The heavenly guard did not like this and exclaimed that all men are the same. After which, with all his might, he dealt a crushing blow right not far from the hero, and continued to attack with a threatening look. The guy wanted to continue to defend himself, and ordered the impudent hare not to let go of his hands, because it was unreasonable. Using his agility skills, Jin Wuzhu told the heavenly hare that it was better not to mess with him now. Having gathered all his strength into one blow, the guy exclaimed that this animal should show him all its true strength. The heavenly hare did this immediately and hit the main character with all his might. Some time later, events continued to occur in the heavenly kingdom. The girl who was in the hot springs asked the handsome guy if he wanted to swim together. Having come to his senses, the guy immediately said that he was all for it, and would immediately get up to swim. As it turned out, all this time there was a heavenly hare in front of him, who was watching him. This really scared the hero and he started screaming in fear. As soon as the lady ordered the heavenly hare not to be disgraceful, he immediately moved away from the hero and was kind to him. Looking around, the guy concluded that this is the same legendary one, Chang'e, who was a celestial goddess and also a moon fairy. The sight was truly impressive because an ordinary person had never been able to see a deity like Chang'e before. It was very noticeable that the main character liked the celestial woman, and he wanted to get to know her. As she got closer, the girl immediately apologized for the actions of her heavenly rabbit named Xiaoba. A little embarrassed, the guy just laughed and said that without a fight it's difficult to recognize each other. However, the girl noticed that the hero is not immortal, but he was still able to enter the palace of Great Cold, which is why she wanted to understand who he was. Deciding to think a little before answering, the hero paused before saying anything. Then he suggested that it was possible, because he was immortal, and could ignore the seal. Chang'e couldn't understand how this was possible, because people could never enter the heavenly kingdom. Scratching his head, the guy only said that it was a very long story, and he was too lazy to tell it. Meanwhile, the goddess decided to ask her heavenly rabbit to make them tea. But also, looking at him again, Xiaoba told him not to rush. Some time later, events continued at the estate, where a kindly rabbit poured tea for everyone. For the main character, this was a truly incredible event, because he is an ordinary person, and somehow ended up in the heavenly kingdom. And also, he is also the owner of a heavenly store, and his name is Jin Wuzhu. Immediately, the girl realized that Jin was Zi Yuan's grandson, and it was not surprising that he was able to break the seal and enter her palace. This was indeed the case, and Jin Wuzhu began to say that he was a good person, and that what he spied was an accident. Having decided to ask again, the girl still wanted to find out what this young man had just told her. The slightly embarrassed guy exclaimed that Sister Chang'e looks very young, but judging by her real age, she is much older than him. This was indeed true, because Chang'e had already lived for a very long time, and she did not deny it. Suddenly, the main character's phone, which was lying right on the table, rang. The melody on his call was extremely strange. It said that the spring wind of reform was blowing throughout the land, and the Chinese people were fighting and moving forward. The heavenly rabbit immediately looked at the unknown device and wanted to understand what it was. Even the celestial woman thought that it was evil spirits that had sneaked into her castle. Laughing, the guy explained that it was not an evil spirit, it was just a telephone. But it was already too late, because the sky rabbit had already done its job and hit the device with all its might. The intelligent animal had incredible strength, and could summon its enlarged body parts in order to perform crushing blows. Watching the broken smartphone, Jin Wuzhu was very upset, because his brand new phone was now unusable. The phone was now imprinted in the cockpit, and really could no longer be used for its intended purpose. What happened really upset the girl, and she began to apologize, saying that Xiaoba was in a hurry again. Without showing it, Jin Wuzhu said that everything was fine, because it was just a phone. And as a store representative, he has a way out of this situation, because he always carries another phone with him as a spare. The goddess decided to ask the man to give her this unusual device so that she could examine it. Holding this invention in her hands, the girl could not understand what it was and why it was even used. Observing the surprise of the goddess, the hero decided to explain that this is one of the great inventions of people, and it has many advantages. Taking the phone in his hands, the guy thought it would be a good idea to take a photo of the goddess. This really surprised Chang'e and the rabbit, because they could not expect that something like this would happen now. After which, Wuzhu showed the photo he had just taken. Surprising even more, the girl saw that she really turned out very realistically in this drawing. Suddenly, the celestial woman decided to snatch the phone right out of the hero's hands, and she wanted Mr. Jin to teach her how to use this unusual thing. Fortunately, this was not a problem for the hero, and he happily agreed. The joyful celestial woman exclaimed that in this case they would now go to her abode. The surprised deities happily watched the brand new device that fell into their hands and wanted to study it. The hero watched all this and understood that even though she was a celestial being, she was still a girl, and all girls love to take selfies. Not understanding what he said, Chang'e flew closer to the earthly guy. After which she thanked Mr. Jin for lending her this thing. The guy in turn said that if she liked this thing very much, then he would give it to her. The girl was delighted with such a gift, because this thing is really very rare, and there is nothing like it anywhere in the heavenly kingdom. Hearing this phrase, the guy immediately thought about it, because he realized that there really were no telephones anywhere in the heavenly kingdom. Taking the girl by the waist, he exclaimed that Sister Chang'e really is a genius, and he himself could not have thought of this before. Obviously not everyone liked this defiant behavior, and the rabbit began to attack again. With a menacing look, the sky rabbit continued his attack, summoning a giant fist to deal a crushing blow. Instantly the girl was able to pacify him and ordered him to calm down. Then she explained that Xiaoba didn't want to do anything like that, and he was just joking. The embarrassed celestial woman also wanted to understand from Mr. Jin why he was just giving her such a precious gift. The smart hero explained that he would only be happy to give it to his sister. Moreover, if not for her, he would have missed such a business opportunity. Also, it will be nice to have a phone in this cold place to pass the time. In this case, the goddess did not dare to refuse. However, she also had a counteroffer. After all, she also wanted to give Mr. Jin a gift for such generosity. This really surprised the hero, because he could not have expected that Sister Chang'e would give him something. Some time later, the guy decided to come to the mortal world in order to purchase as many mobile phones as possible. After which, he again arrived in the heavenly kingdom, and thought that if he sold all these phones, he could get rich. But an hour later, not a single customer arrived at his brand new store. He was even able to fall asleep from idleness, due to the fact that none of the visitors were in his store. Suddenly, a mysterious deity entered the store and asked if there was a seller here. Upon waking up, Jin immediately asked the visitor to go inside the store. Arriving at the store, the visitor heard that some mortal had opened a store here. Because of this, he decided to come and see what kind of goods were here. Surprised, the hero decided to ask what the name of this handsome celestial being was. The celestial being really realized that he was indeed an ordinary person, and did not even know who Zhu Beiji was. Then the hero exclaimed that this guy was just pretending to be Zhu Beiji, and he should apologize. The celestial being clearly did not like this impudent behavior, and he shouted to the man that this was really very rude, and he thought that it was just envy, because he was more beautiful. In fact, this is not so, and the guy turned to Zhu Beiji's brother. They say that he is very daring and not complex, which is why all the girls love him. The deity liked this flattery very much, and he forgave Jin Wutsu for his insolence, said that he really had not been in the human world for a long time, and forgot what it was like there. Looking at the mobile phones, Zhu Beiji wanted to understand what kind of goods this man was selling. Realizing that Zhu Beiji was very depraved, the guy knew that he needed to somehow persuade him to buy a phone. Then the guy said that this thing is called a mobile phone, and with its help he can talk to all the beautiful women in the world, even if they are thousands of miles away, as if they were right in front of him. Hearing this, the deity was extremely pleased with this proposal, and he asked to give him one phone number. Smiling, the hero understood that as expected from Zhu Beiji, when he heard about the beautiful girls, he immediately changed. Looking at the desired phone, the deity thought about how this little box was really so amazing, and how it could even be more powerful than his magic weapon. Without thinking twice, the hero decided to demonstrate his mobile phone right now. That's when he started calling Chang'e to show how it works. For a deity, this was truly an amazing magic trick, because Zhu Beiji had never seen anything like this before. The fact that Chang'e was there scared him very much, because he could not understand how the girl ended up in this small box, which is why he wanted to get her out of there. The indignant hero shouted to brother Zhu that he had understood everything wrong, immediately followed by 30 minutes of explanation. After this, Zhu Beiji realized that there is such a powerful thing in the human world, and with its help, all the beauties from the three kingdoms will now be his. And due to the fact that the brothers were the first buyer, Jin Wutsu was even going to give him a discount. Suddenly, the deity said that in fact he had no money. The angry guy shouted, asking how a celestial being could not take money with him. The cunning celestial revealed that he is Zhu Beiji, and wherever he goes, everything is free for him, which is why he does not need money. Not understanding what to do with it, the guy started talking about how this store was completely new, so he needed money for its development. Laughing, the deity said that he and his grandfather had a very good relationship, and this phone could be exchanged for something else. The object that the main character saw really surprised him extremely, because the thing was truly unusual. The thing he picked up was a Tiangong, with 36 changes. Skeptical about such a subject, the hero wanted to understand, since these methods are so amazing, then why did he not see Zhu Beiji conquer the three realms? It turned out that after he achieved immortality, he neglected his training and only mastered a couple of methods from the 36 Tiangong transformations, and if he mastered them all, then even this Monkey King Sun Wukong would not compare with him. Realizing that the Monkey King was indeed very strong, the hero wanted to match his strength and defeat him. After all, if he becomes as strong as Sun Wukong, then in the human world he will be a Superman. Zhu Beiji continued to say that what he did was really very profitable, and an extremely rare thing. Unfortunately, the guy knew that he was just an ordinary person. Even if he received this thing, he still would not be able to practice all these methods. For the deity, this was nothing, because he was going to teach the hero everything, and in return he would teach him how to use this phone. Thus, they made an agreement and were ready to help each other. The hero began to slowly but surely cultivate his abilities, while the deity, meanwhile, dealt with the phone. The smart guy studied the book, and became stronger every second, because the knowledge that he acquired helped him extremely much in this. Watching him, Zhu Beiji realized that this boy was definitely gifted. These methods really turned out to be very useful, because after just a few hours of practice, the guy felt very easy and at ease. Although this is just the beginning, in the future everything will depend on him, and it will be possible to understand whether he can go further. Meanwhile, Zhu Beiji found an interesting application called Tan Tan, and said that its beauty is in no way inferior to the beauty of any girl. Then he decided to show Jin Wu-tsu his most beautiful photograph, which he had already taken. Throwing down the phone, God showed one of his most beautiful photos that he took on the phone. This was truly amazing for an ordinary person, because it's good when you are immortal and can do whatever you want. Soon after, Zhu Beiji began to leave, and asked the guy not to practice too hard, so as not to lose all his strength. Some time later, events continued in the heavenly city. Grandfather Jin Wu-zu stood on one of the roofs and cultivated his abilities. The master's concentration was at the highest level, and he was unshakable, because every second he became stronger. Suddenly, Zhu Beiji noticed him and turned to Zi Xian. Then he said that his old friend Zhu Beiji did everything as it should. Grandfather decided to ask, did he really give away the 36 changes of Tian-Gon, one of the best methods of kung fu practice? This time he really spent money. This indulgence for the common man was due to the fact that they are friends, and besides, it is just a tiny book, and it is not worth mentioning. At that same second, the deity's phone, which was in his pocket, rang. The attentive grandfather immediately realized that Zhu Beiji now owned a phone, and realized that he should also get himself a phone. In fact, the grandfather did all this for his grandson, and in the future he will have to decide for himself what to do. Meanwhile, events continued to happen in the heavenly store. Another resident of China began to enter the store, asking if anyone was here. This was an old man, who was one of the inhabitants of the kingdom, and wanted to see the range of goods that were present in this store. The stunned hero immediately thought that this grandfather really had a very big head, as if he were some kind of alien. This statement made the grandfather extremely angry, and he asked how the young man dared to laugh at him. After all, he is one of the Chinese deities, the immortal elder of the South Pole, who is the deity of longevity. Having calmed down, the hero realized that this was really the deity of longevity, and decided to find out what he really needed. Smiling, the guy also said that he could help you choose any product that he had in his store. In fact, the three deities are happiness, good luck and longevity, should send happiness, good luck and longevity to the three kingdoms. However, nowadays the number of people is increasing and they have a lot of work to do. Although they are immortal, but their energy is limited and they cannot cope with the daily load. After some thought, the hero realized that something could probably be done to take the pressure off him at work. And yet, I realized that there is definitely one way, and it will really work. The boy invited the deity of longevity to come inside the store, and he offered to sit down on a chair first to talk about the product he wanted to sell. The mobile chat program has been provided with a red envelope function. With one click of a finger you will be able to spread all the grace. Looking at the phone, most were dumbfounded. After all, the elderly man had never seen anything like it before. He couldn't believe that there really was such a thing as magic in the human world, and he wanted Jin Wu-tsu to show him how it worked. Having sorted out the phone a little, the deity of longevity was already going to increase the life expectancy of all chat participants by 1 year. Ordinary people didn't understand who could be so generous and give out red envelopes in the chat. The red envelope indicated that the person had received a longevity envelope, and for more detailed information he could click on the button. If the longevity deity could use it, then he wouldn't need to go anywhere. But unfortunately, he is afraid that such a precious magical treasure is worth a lot of money. The young man immediately assumed that the old man was joking with him, because according to their tradition, they should honor their elders and not offend the younger ones, so he decided to give this phone as a gift. Suspecting nothing, the elder could not believe that he was being given such a precious thing. This was indeed the case, plus free accommodation, guaranteed replacement of a broken package and free phone firmware. This act really touched the deity, because social morals are getting worse and worse. Despite this, there are such smart young people. He was very touched by this. Using his magic, he decided that he would no longer be stingy, and he began to call for a certain fruit, which was very similar to a large peach. It turned out that this is a peach from the Queen Mother's peach garden, although it is only 3,000 years old, but if the mortal congress is his, then he can become immortal and avoid all diseases. In gratitude for such a gift, the guy exclaimed that he would keep it for now until the time came when he could use it. The elder was really very glad that the young man liked this gift, after which he got ready to go. The joyful guy exclaimed that the deity of longevity should take care of himself and go to the store more often. The doors of his store are always open. Jin Wuzhu, after closing the store, began to think that he could exchange only 2 insignificant phones for such treasures, and it seems that this business will really take off. Suddenly, his phone started ringing, and he couldn't even imagine who was looking for him. Maybe it was that cruel girl Shenqing. It turned out that it was Xiao Yu, who wanted to know if Jin Wuzhu was free tonight because a new bar had opened near the school and they could go and have a drink together. This proposal really made the hero very happy, because tonight was a busy day, and it would be nice if he rested a little. Some time later, events continued in the city, where old friends met in a bar. They were happy about this meeting, and raising their glasses they wanted to drink together. Xiao Yu heard that his friend contacted Shenqing, and this girl is not so simple, and he asked to let him know if there is any problem. The boy told his friend not to worry about it because he could easily solve this little problem and they should have a drink together. A few minutes later, the waitress again brought several glasses of drink and wished the guys a good evening. A friend immediately noticed that this girl was really very beautiful, but the heroes were not interested in her, because the girls working in such a place are not particularly reliable, even though she was beautiful. Looking at his friend, the hero knew that he would never have the chance to see a more beautiful girl like Sister Chang'e. Suddenly, one of the visitors attracted a lot of attention from Jin Wuzhu. Today is Mr. Zhao's birthday, so all the drinking today was at Mr. Zhao's expense. The girls clung to him, because they believed that the gentleman was really very kind to everyone. Suddenly, the scoundrel began pestering one of the girls, telling her to wait. It was the waitress who Zhao was telling that she didn't need to do such hard work and should accompany him. The polite girl immediately apologized, telling the gentleman that she was just an ordinary waitress. The impudent man continued to pester him and said that it was really very hot in this bar, and the girl should help him cool down. The scoundrel continued to open his arms, and the girl screamed for help, telling the gentleman not to do this. Unable to bear such impudent behavior, Jin Wuzhu hit the pervert with all his might to help him cool down. Mr. Zhao immediately turned around to see who hit him, and when he saw the guy, he asked if he really wanted to save this beauty. The scoundrel's team immediately began to approach closer to the hero and asked how he dared to hit the master, and whether he was tired of living. Zhao was furious and started shouting that he would give 100,000 to the one who would tear off the hands of the insolent person who dared to hit him. All the guys were shocked by this offer and couldn't refuse it, because 100,000 was a huge amount. Laughing, the hero realized that he had mastered many techniques, and now he could practice using them. One of the daredevils began to attack from behind, shouting that he should be allowed to finish off the main character, and that he should not resist. But with just one blow, the seemingly frail guy was able to easily deprive the scoundrel of his weapon who dared to attack him. Because no one dares to finish off Jin Wuzhu, the attackers did not have enough strength, because the guy was practicing his kung fu skills and was ready to fight. Rich Zhao immediately realized that this guy was a monk, because he was good at martial arts. Looking at his opponents, the hero only exclaimed that his brothers were not good enough for this fight. Because of this, he invited the scoundrel to fight personally to find out which of them is stronger. It turned out that Zhao was ready for this fight, and said that few people saw his strength, and the guy was really very lucky. Instantly, the unsuspecting protagonist felt that an ominous aura was emanating from this scoundrel. The impudent man with incredible speed came closer to the guy and began to attack, after which he asked if he was scared. There was a blow, and this caused a great shock to Jin Wuzhu, because he did not expect that the enemy would be so strong. In fact, Xiao Yu exposed himself to the blow, and thereby protected the protagonist from the crushing power of the ominous blow. An unknown creature hung right over the hero and looked at him menacingly, wanting only to kill him. The villain continued to use magical abilities in battle, and was ready to kill anyone who stood in his way. If the villain was not mistaken, then Jin is a monk, and for a demon, the flesh of a monk is the most delicious, but he never liked to hurt people, so he was going to take the girl and leave him alive. The brave guy in turn said that they should not fight here, because there are a lot of people in this place, and it will be problematic. Suddenly, he had one very good idea that he wanted to use. Grabbing the girl, the guy began to run, realizing that the demon only needed her. The demonic creature really liked this game, when the victim runs away from his pursuer. Some time later, events continued in Evening City and the chase continued. The heroes already began to think that the scoundrel was not pursuing them, and Brother Zhu deceived him. Jin's body really became stronger, because he ran such a distance and was not at all tired. At that very second, the embarrassed guy realized that he was still holding the girl in his arms, and should already let her go. Unexpectedly, the impudent man shouted that the hero dared to steal his woman, and he really had a lot of courage. Because of this, the demon was going to kill the main character, because revenge was inevitable. Looking back, the guy shouted at the girl to leave, because he wanted to deal with the attacker himself. The frightened waitress only asked the stranger to be careful in this battle. The self-confident demon shouted that the baby should not rush, because they would not leave here anywhere. Wishing death, the demon continued to attack the main character, and swung its strong arms to cause as much damage as possible. At the first hit, the protagonist's new clothes were damaged and could no longer be used. Since this is so, it was time to try the technique of shifting mountains and filling the seas from the 36 transformations of the Chang'an. The demon liked this confrontation extremely much, because he saw that his opponent was now really very serious. Concentrating the energy of his palm, Jin Wuzhu was ready to fight to the last to drive out his opponent. The two strongest opponents in the city clashed in battle, and were ready to kill each other just to achieve their goal. A brave guy, being an ordinary mortal, used the mountain blow technique. Thus, a giant mountain appeared not far from him, which struck the insolent demon. This blow really had an effect, and the guy saw the demon suffer in agony from pain. Then the demon exclaimed that this blow was really not bad, but it did not kill him, because anyone who offends the Zhao family will not get off easy. But Jin Wuzhu did not consider this guy cool, because he understood that there were people much cooler than him. In fact, the demon began to run away and shouted for Jin to wait, because he would definitely take revenge. Meanwhile, the waitress approached the main character and noticed that he was injured, which is why she asked him to go to the hospital. Fortunately, the hero was fine and asked not to tell anyone what happened, and the girl decided that she would keep her mouth shut. She also doesn't want to work there, but now she has financial difficulties because there are problems in her family. Having asked the girl not to tell this, he began to talk about how her parents left her long ago, her brother was seriously ill, so she works there to earn money for his treatment. It was indeed true, but what he said was the truth, and she should find some jobs to work harder and earn the right amount of money. Not understanding anything, the hero only thought that this girl was really very strange. Some time later, events continued to occur in Jin's store. Another visitor came and addressed the director. She wanted to buy this new phone, but only cheaply as an exception for a special client. The smart guy decided that he would make a good discount for such a celestial being. As he held out the phone, he hoped that he would receive a very good and profitable offer. Thanking him, the girl said that when he had free time, he could stop by for tea. After kissing the girl's hand, the guy blushed a little and said that this would really happen because it was an honor for him. After several successful transactions, the hero found himself back in the city, and had already bought himself a brand new jacket. Looking around, he noticed a familiar man standing nearby. It was the same waitress who found herself a part-time job handing out leaflets, and asked him to take one. Suddenly, someone took her hand and decided to address her. The stranger called her beautiful and wanted to offer her something illegal. Smiling, the impudent man said that he couldn't earn much by distributing leaflets, and she could play with him, and then he would pay the price that suited her. At the same second, another guy approached, but he was already addressing the impudent man who was offering the girl obscene things. It was the main character who told the villain that he could have fun with him and he would pay him well. The stunned man immediately began to deny it, saying that he did not want this. The grateful girl said thank you for the fact that the hero saved her again. In fact, for the hero it was just like that, because he walked by and saw that a crime was happening. The girl, in turn, decided to introduce herself, saying that her name was Lin Huang. She was studying at the Faculty of Television and Radio Broadcasting. The boy also decided to talk about himself. Introducing himself, he said that he was studying at the Faculty of Finance and Banking, and also apologized to the girl, because yesterday he had gone too far and took back his words. It turned out that in fact what the hero said was true. Lack of money does not mean that you need to rush to such places, and she should thank him for that. A few hours later, events continued to occur at the Central Hospital. Xiao Yu was unhappy that his friend was a heartless scoundrel because he broke all his bones trying to help him. He only comes to him 3 times a week. But complaining in this case was a sin, because different girls came to him every time. He was really very lucky. Pretending that his friend was sick, he asked the hero to leave because he could not delay taking his medication. Leaving the room, Jin Wu-tsu understood that his friend had exchanged him for a girl. Suddenly, he noticed a familiar person who was nearby. It was Lin Huang, who was not far from her younger sister, asking her if she had taken the medicine. As soon as the little sister asked the girl when she would get better, the sister could not hold back her tears and almost began to cry. At that very second, the hero decided to intervene in this dialogue and asked his little sister to calm down, confidently telling her that it would get better soon. The little girl immediately wanted to ask her brother who he was. Could it be her sister's boyfriend? Deciding not to contradict the girl's words, the hero said that this was really true, and he would definitely cure her. Little sister was really very happy to receive such support from a stranger. Lin Huang thanked her savior again, although it was a lie, but thanks to him, Lei became much calmer. It turned out that in fact Jin Wu-tsu was not lying, and he would be able to cure her little sister. Getting even more upset, the girl explained that it was useless. Her little sister had a strange disease, and even the doctors couldn't find the reason. Every day she was getting weaker and weaker. Having hugged the girl, the smart guy only asked that she trust him in such a difficult situation, because he is an unusual person, and she needs to go to her little sister while he looks for a way to cure her. Some time later, Jin Wu-tsu began to think that perhaps this was his illusion, but there is a weak layer of darkness on the child's body, and in the 36 changes of the Tian-gon there is a method called veil guidance, with which one can open the heavenly eye and understand all the lies. In this situation this ability will indeed be very useful. Instantly, the main character I decided to use an ability called leading through the veil. Using this ability, he still managed to discover something very unusual. After all, not far from him a dark silhouette could be seen, which was probably involved in the misfortunes that happened in this hospital. It turned out that in fact this silhouette turned out to be a black spirit that was present in this hospital. His scroll influenced whether a person was born or died, which is why he wanted to see what kind of dead man was today. Having examined his scroll, the dark spirit wanted to understand who was destined to die or be born today. After using the soul shackles, he realized that today he must take the life of a girl named Lilin. A magical ritual began to sweep through the entire hospital, which was supposed to kill a person. Suddenly, the hero decided to stop this whole process and asked the dark spirit whose life he was going to take. The stunned dark spirit could not understand how man could see him, as if he were immortal. Jin Wu-tsu ordered the spirit to stop, because he could not allow the life of this girl to be taken. The dark spirit clearly did not like this outcome, because he is the black spirit of the underworld, and they, mortals, have no right to interfere in the cycle of life and death, as well as in the laws of heaven and earth. Then the brave guy decided to ask what would happen if he did intervene. Then the girl will not live long and will die in half a month. Instead of letting the other ghosts take her, he will do it first and must take her soul. This way he can bypass that guy Xiao Bai. After thinking a little, the hero realized that their work was based on productivity. In any case, there was no way to save the girl unless by feeding her unusual fruits that would increase her lifespan, such as Goddess of Mercy Nectar, or Zen Goddess Ginseng, or Queen Mother Peaches. The black spirit understood that an ordinary person could not have such fruits, and he would not be able to do this. At that very second, the hero handed over the same peach from the Queen Mother that the deity of longevity had previously given him. The stunned spirit could not understand how an ordinary person could have such a jewel in his hands. Then the boy decided to tell her that this was a gift from a friend, and if she needed to give this peach, he would gladly do it so that the girl would live. Not understanding anything, the spirit began to think that this peach is from the heavenly kingdom, and he says that it is from a friend, as if he was sent by his superiors to check his work. Perhaps this will somehow affect his career, and he should not be rude to him. A few minutes later, the hero decided to cut a few pieces of peaches that he brought from his home garden. They are very nutritious and healthy. As soon as the girl ate one piece of peaches, she immediately felt that she felt much better. Since this was really true, the nice guy asked her to eat as many peach pieces as possible. Some time later, the girl thanked her brother and said that she was really full, and she was already much better. At the same time, the hero wanted to understand, since the darkness in her body had dissipated, the peach was really good for her, but if she ate too much, would it help cure her illness? The remaining peaches could not be thrown away because they were quite expensive, and people also said that they were very good for the skin. The girl was truly grateful for such a generous act, and Jin Woo-tsu asked her not to thank her for it. After all, she is his girlfriend. The smart boy promised the girl that he would come to visit her again, and she was very glad that such a nice guy would become her son-in-law. Confused, Lin Huang began to think that maybe this guy really is someone who can be trusted. After leaving the office, the black spirit said that the murderous aura on her body had disappeared, and the peach was a good treasure. A small piece was enough to bring the dead back to life, but he was unlucky because this deal failed again. The hero was very happy about this turn of events, because he understood that he really was able to save the girl. The incredibly generous guy asked the spirit not to be upset, and was going to give him the last piece of peach to compensate for his loss. I don't understand such generosity. The spirit was really shocked and asked if he could really take it, because it was a very precious thing. As soon as the black spirit asked the hero who he really was, the tough guy said that he was just the head of a heavenly store named Jin Woo-tsu. The shocked spirit could not have expected that this guy was the owner of that very shop. It turned out that his name had spread throughout the afterlife, and the spirit was immensely grateful to him and admires him. Jin Woo-tsu asked to thank him and not to suck up, because he just provided a service, and he probably has some kind of status in the underworld. Soon, when he expands his store to the afterlife, he will need help. The black spirit confirmed that he has great connections in the underworld, and when the time comes, he will help. The guys were really happy that they would make a lot of money and be truly rich. Meanwhile, ordinary people watched the hero and thought that he was some kind of crazy person because he was talking to himself. Some time later, the heavenly guardian was amazed by a new discovery for himself, and thought that this was very indecent. The hero tried to calm him down. They say that he will slowly get used to it, but with people this is normal. The embarrassed guy asked to do it more slowly because it hurt. Jin Woo-tsu was also a little embarrassed, and said that it will hurt at first, but once he gets used to it, it will be good. And finally, they ended. In the human world everyone dresses up their pets, and in the heavenly kingdom they also decided to do this. Thus, without any doubt, Seong-yang decided to buy clothes for his beloved pet. Suddenly, more visitors arrived, looking for director Jin Woo-tsu to buy brand new goods from him. The guy was very happy that there were more and more visitors every time. He began to smile at the new customers and said that he was here. If they liked something, they could tell about it. Seong-yang immediately recognized the two girls. Their names were Jin Zhao and Yin Zhao. The girls also saw their old friend and knew that he was a passionate dog lover. The heavenly guard did not like this nickname very much, and he saw the devils that they had completely lost their conscience, which is why he wanted to teach them a lesson. Interrupting their conversation, Jin Woo-tsu asked what they still wanted to buy in his store. It turned out that Jina wants to see Lao Jun. This is the Taoist patriarch of the supreme deity in religious Taoism. The stunned guy couldn't even imagine why the immortal Lao Tsung needed him. Even the heavenly guardian understood that if it was Lao Jun, then he had to go, otherwise he could not avoid the consequences. The frightened young man did not understand how he could leave his store and go. But still, some time later, he went to the abode of the saints, where that same Lao Jun was. The girls were leading a frightened guy, and he didn't even understand why such a great celestial needed him. They also advised the guy to watch his behavior, otherwise the Lord would throw him into the oven, and also he should arrive as soon as possible, because the Lord does not like to wait. Suddenly, the door swung open, and the Lord was waiting for the main character, whom he had recently called. With his back to the guy, Lao Jun was glad that Jin Wuzhu had finally come to him. What the hero saw really shocked him, because he could never imagine that the elder looked like that. In fact, it was a girl, and she asked to call her Lao Tzu, but he could call her Sister June. Then he realized that in fact, the immortals also look like people, and besides, the immortal Lao Jun is a girl. Sister June called her to help her with one thing. She is developing one elixir, but she is missing one ingredient, and it is Chinese corn. This grain is called immortality grass. It does not grow for a long time in the heavenly kingdom, but in the human world it grows in the coldest place. At that very second, Jin Wuzhu realized that Sister June wants him to go to the human world and bring this herb, but while he is weak, he is afraid that something might happen while collecting herbs, because no one can guarantee his safety. The clever goddess knew that they, people, are very cunning. After completing the assignment, all her purified elixirs will be at his disposal, and he can use them as he pleases. She also took out her spiritual scythe. It was always next to her, and in the future the hero needs to keep it with him, and then it will protect him from any incidents. Seeing this weapon, he could not even imagine that this fragile scythe was so cool. The sisters also shouted that all the Lord's treasures are cool. This is the moon scythe made of the best moonstone. Every night it absorbs lunar energy, and they, mortals, do not know much about goods. Suddenly, the Lord exclaimed that the sisters needed to be more polite, because Jin Wuzhu was their guest. Offended, the girls only said that they would be more polite in future. Using her magical abilities, the girl began to summon a new artifact, which she also wanted to give to the hero. It was a map of the human world, drawn by her thousandth eye, and the location of the distribution of the immortality grass was also marked on it, so, following this map, it would be possible to find the grass. Seeing the huge map, the guy was happy about this turn of events, but exclaimed that it was too huge to carry, so he was going to take a photo of it with his phone. Not understanding what kind of magical object this was, the girl immediately wanted to find out what kind of magical thing it was that could remember this entire map. Then the guy didn't say that this is a cell phone, a human creation. If Sister June likes it, then he can give her one in honor of their first meeting. This invention really surprised June, because she could not imagine that people are progressing from year to year, and this is apparently true. She also said that this fire immortality grass is very valuable, it can increase his strength, but she will not blame him if he wants to use it for his own purposes. However, the fire immortality grass is very dry and hot, it needs harmony and yang, otherwise his life will be in danger. The smart young man asked June not to worry, because compared to these wild herbs, Sister June's herbs and elixirs are the best, and he will definitely bring them. Realizing the severity of this test, the hero wanted to first return to the human world and prepare to collect the grass. Suddenly, someone behind him started calling, saying that there was one more thing for him to do. These were sisters who also wanted to talk about something. Namely, they also needed smartphones in order to use them. With an arrogant tone, the guy exclaimed that he is a businessman, so if they want to buy a phone, they must give something in return. With a smile on his face, he wanted to know what kind of toys these teenagers had. One of the girls presented the gold with a red pumpkin. If he wants, it can suck in the one who calls his name. Another sister presented a golden rope. If he says, she will tie anything and anyone. Such valuables were truly impressive, and the guy did not understand how he could exchange these treasures for a regular phone. In fact, these things were not real, but only imitation. Although their power is the same as the real thing, however, there is a difference in the effect. Surprised even more, the boy was shocked that this was just an imitation, because he did not know that there were such things in this world. In anticipation, the sisters were already waiting to see how they would receive brand new phones. Still, the smart seller gave in, even though he understood that with such an exchange he would only be at a loss. This creation of people greatly confused the sisters, because they did not understand why the deities did not create telephones earlier. Suddenly, the guy realized that the goddesses did not know how to use these phones at all. But they, in turn, said that they would learn on their own and would use them as they saw fit, after which they began to leave. This upset the hero even more, because he understood that these devils were very two-faced. In any case, the exchange was made, and it was necessary to use the items that he now had. Suddenly, a friend called and said that he and the group were going skiing to Mount Panlong. This was a great opportunity to meet girls. At that very second, it dawned on the guy, because he realized that he needed to visit this mountain. Because it is on this mountain that the very plant is located that needs to be collected for Lao Jun. Some time later, the seller of earthly goods found himself on the ski slope right in the middle of the mountain where those herbs grow first. He wanted to have a good time, and then go get some medicine. Meanwhile, a very beautiful girl called Jin Wuzhu, and all the guys kept staring at her, knowing that she was the beauty of their house, and it would be nice if she was their girlfriend. The girl continued to go down the slope in order to catch up with her classmate. Rejoicing even more, the hero noticed her and realized that she was an old friend of his. But what happened next surprised him extremely, and he was literally scared. Because the girl fell from the slope, knocked over the main character, and did not even give him the opportunity to dodge and stay on his feet. Embarrassed by this turn of events, Lin Huang felt awkward because she did not want this to happen. After apologizing, she began to run away for fear that the reaction would be bad. But in fact, everything was in order, and the smart guy even managed to appreciate the girl's figure. At the same time, the guy noticed that another beauty had arrived, and two guys had already approached her and wanted to teach her how to ride. But the unshakable lady only told them to get out. The arrogant guys saw her here alone and just wanted to keep her company, which is why they continued to pester her. In any case, this girl had bodyguards, so help was not needed in this situation. It turned out that the girl saw Jin Wu-tsu and ordered him to stand still because he still owed her money. Then the lady decided to tell her that this young man is her boyfriend. She didn't have bodyguards today, so he needed to pretend to be her boyfriend and she would forgive him a percentage of the money he owed. The guys were immediately upset, because they realized that the girl was busy and should not be pestered. This was indeed the case, and Jin Wu-tsu exclaimed that this was his girlfriend. And they are not allowed to touch the owner's food, so they must stay there or leave. In fact, this guy looked like a beginner who didn't know how to ski, and if they went, the beauty would lose a lot. Feeling that these guys were in trouble, the hero decided to argue with them, because he is not a beginner. Some time later, events continued to occur at the Panlong Snow Mountain restaurant. It turned out that the arrogant guys lost the argument, and this restaurant was very expensive. They also wanted to understand what kind of creature this was, not the guy, because he skis as if he was soaring in the sky. The smart and cunning guy exclaimed that Xiao Yu should eat as much as possible, because in any case, the other guy will pay for everything. Some time later, the dissatisfied girl said bon appetit to everyone, and was about to go to her room and relax. Turning around, Lin Huang decided to ask Jin Wuzhu why he didn't follow his girlfriend because it seemed like she was unhappy with something. Then the hero decided to explain that this is not his girlfriend, but just a blatant lie, because he cannot fall in love with such a trashy girl. Meanwhile, a stranger was approaching the Snow Mountain restaurant and wanted to do something very evil. The impudent man was creeping closer to the building every second, and wanted to commit a terrible act. At the same time, the girl who demanded money from the main character was taking a shower. She had a strange feeling because she kept thinking about that guy. But soon, after taking a shower, she decided to forget about this situation and go to the balcony to get some fresh air. Still, she was tormented by some kind of remorse, and she felt really very strange. Standing on the balcony, she thought that Jin Wuzhu was now together with Lin Huang, and they were probably even dating. Suddenly, Lady noticed a strange man who was not far from her. Meanwhile, together with the moon scythe, the main character was looking for the grass of immortality. I understand that it is already very close. Someone gradually began to approach the guy, and literally sneaked up to remain unnoticed. Looking around, he wanted to understand who was hiding not far from him and watching. About to strike, the hero turned sharply to see who was pursuing him. It turned out that it was Shenqing, and for some reason she was watching Jin Wuzhu. Screaming in pain, the girl understood that she needed to ask why he was sneaking out in the middle of the night and going somewhere, and he also threw a stone at her head. Having started to deny it, he only said that he was not sneaking, but simply could not sleep and decided to take a walk. Shenqing recognized the lie because she saw him holding something shiny in his hands, which is why she also wanted to see this object. She also noticed that the liar was hiding something in his pants, which is why she ordered this thing to be given to her here. While running away, Jin Wuzhu shouted that she should not touch this place, but Shenqing did not care and wanted to see what was there. During the chase, the girl accidentally stumbled upon a stone and tripped. Turning back, the guy who didn't understand anything wanted to know what the hell was going on here and why this girl was flying. Things were really bad for them because there was a slope ahead. As a result, they fell into the very slope and found themselves in an unknown place. But fortunately, they fell together, and Shenqing was directly on top of the main character. At the same time, she had a feeling of awkwardness and pain after falling from a great height. Experiencing even more severe pain, with the last of his strength the hero exclaimed for her to get off him, because he could not breathe. Shenqing felt that the guy had not taken advantage and began to choke him, but in fact he eased her fall. In any case, now was not the time to argue, because it seemed like they were in a very bad place, and in any case, they should call for help first. Yawning from fatigue, the hero decided to call himself, and gradually began to take out his phone. But what he discovered shocked him, because he did not expect this to happen. After all, his phone was completely broken, and there was no way to call anyone for help. Meanwhile, events took place in the Heavenly Kingdom. Sister June discovered that the monkey she had been waiting for had come to her. The monkey assumed that June had called him here to eat the immortality pills, and called the goddess an old woman. The sisters did not like this, and they immediately began to run to the scoundrel, saying that he was a rude person. Then the stranger suggested that the two of them were still behaving impudently, which meant that he had not beaten them enough before. Although he has already become a Buddha, he still solves everything with his fists. This time June called him here to borrow something and give it to one person. This was indeed an interesting phenomenon, because the monkey did not understand who dared to borrow from her. Moreover, he also did not understand why he would give his items to a stranger. Lao Jun explained that this person could defeat him in the future. Meanwhile, ordinary people fell into a trap. Shenqing was worried because she did not understand what to do next. Unfortunately, Jin Wutsu forgot his phone in the store, and was not sure that he could jump to such a height, and even with a girl in his hands. Moreover, he does not reveal his abilities to ordinary people. Suddenly, the main character's genes begin to glow again. A little embarrassed, the girl with great curiosity wanted to find out what was so interesting shining there. It turned out that it was a glow stick, and in fact he is a climber. This thing is needed for lighting. Shenqing immediately realized that this crescent-shaped glow stick is very rare. Feeling that the magical object was giving signs, the hero immediately realized that the heavenly grass could be in this cave. The silence from Jin Wuzhu did not suit Shenqing, and she became even more angry because the guy did nothing. Then they began to travel through the cave into which they had fallen. In any case, there is no need to worry, because if their friends see that they are missing, they will call a search and rescue team to find them, and if they move on, maybe they will find a way out. The surprised guy also did not expect that Shenqing was afraid of the dark, which is why he exclaimed that he would protect her from everything. The embarrassed and frightened girl only said that he was afraid of the dark, and they should move on, because nothing bad would happen. Some time later, they went deeper into the cave, and Shenqing became even more frightened, asking the guy to go slower. Suddenly, a terrible sound was heard, and the girl was extremely frightened by an unexpected blow in the cave. Seeing how nervous the girl was, the main character now wanted to tease her even more. Shenqing did not like this behavior very much, and she just wanted to get out of here and never communicate with the hero again. It turned out that these sounds were made by a monkey that was climbing nearby. This monkey had a small wound, and it was not serious at all. The little monkey really liked that the girl found him and started hugging him. But Jin Wutsu became very jealous and grabbed the monkey to pacify it. The main character immediately realized that this was a completely unusual monkey, which is why he asked to give him the opportunity to see where its wound was. Let's look at the monkey. Jin Wuzhu remembered that in 36 transformations there was a method to bring the dead back to life, but he is not ready yet, but he does not think that there will be any problems in treating this minor wound. Surprised even more, the girl could not understand how he did it, and healed the monkey in a matter of seconds. Realizing that he could not tell, the guy only said that he simply had his own secrets. The cute little monkey seemed to want to say something, and pointed somewhere with its paw. Jin Wuzhu at first could not understand what was happening to this monkey, but Shenqing assumed that she wanted to show them the way out. This was really so, and the monkey was glad that the girl understood him. As it turned out, this is an intelligent monkey, it understands human speech. In any case, there is no use hanging around here, so you should follow it. The main character could not even imagine that Shenqing, being a mafioso, could be so kind. In fact, if Jin Wuzhu was injured, she would not even look at him. Some time later, the girl exclaimed that she did not expect that there was such a strange place at the end of the cave. The place was really very amazing, and it was extremely cold. Being in only a robe, Shenqing was very cold, because she was poorly dressed. The plants nearby looked very special, probably some rare species growing in the ice. The plants themselves sprouted through thick ice, and grew in incredibly cold weather. Suddenly, the hero realized that this was the very plant that he needed so much. Out of curiosity, the girl decided to come closer to look at the flower. But at the same second, as soon as she stepped on the ice, she immediately fell through, because it was in that place that the ice was very fragile. Feeling like she couldn't get out, Shenqing began to think that she would die here like this. Fortunately, Jin Wuzhu was very brave and decided to save her from certain death. Swimming up to the girl, he began to reach for her hand in order to grab her and pull her out of here. A few minutes later, he still managed to pull the girl out and save her from death, which would have occurred after several minutes in icy water. I understand that her and his clothes were soaked in cold water. He was afraid, like a mere mortal, that they would not last more than a few minutes. That's when he remembered that Sister June had said that this herb was filled with yang energy, so if he gave it to Shenqing, it could save her life. Although he took the heavenly grass without her permission, he can't think of anything else. And he needs to do this because Shenqing is unconscious, so there is no other way. Taking the fruits of the grass into his family, the hero began to transfer the medicine using his mouth. And he did it in such a way that the medicine would get directly into the mouth with maximum efficiency. Immediately the medicine worked. Shenqing immediately woke up, and was very embarrassed after the kiss she felt. As she began to undress, the girl felt incredible heat. The embarrassed guy asked her not to take off her clothes because it was dangerous. The girl literally attacked him, and Jin Wuzhu literally shouted for her not to come. Meanwhile, Lin Huang heard someone's voice and realized that it could be Jin Wuzhu. She couldn't believe that Jin and Shenqing had gone missing at the same time. Even though they had sent a search party to look for them, she still couldn't stop worrying, and it would be nice if they were found as soon as possible. At the same time, there was a confrontation in the forest, which caused it to start burning. The unknown creature screamed that it would not forgive for such a terrible act. The scoundrel wanted to find out from the snowy and stubborn spirit where the fire grass of immortality was located. Even if the snow spirit dies, he still won't give up the fire grass. The insolent man continued to shout that in this world there is no concept of good or evil, there are only strong and weak. And if so, he decided to use fire magic, shouting and then for the creature to go to hell to his friends. The spirit instantly began to burn because fire magic was used on it. Having started smoking a cigarette, the scoundrel realized that he was wasting his time, and was already feeling the heat from the fire grass, and would find it in less than 3 hours, after which he would become stronger than the 5 great demons with his demonic power. Suddenly, Lin Huang noticed the scoundrel who was attacking the fox. Poor fox was knocked down by such a strong blow and was in incredible pain. Fortunately, the little fox did not die, and the smart Lin Huang immediately realized that this fox was unusual. Looking around, she wanted to understand what this man was doing, and whether he had anything to do with the disappearance of Jin Wuzhu. Meanwhile, the main character continued to cultivate his abilities. He never would have thought that the warmth of the fire grass and the cold of that place would help him break through to the 7th level. It was like a blessing. Suddenly, Shenqing first came to her senses, and didn't understand why her whole body was aching. The hero was very glad that the girl had finally woken up and they could leave this place. Embarrassed by this situation, she didn't understand why she didn't have all her clothes on, and her whole body hurt. Realizing that something bad might happen, the guy immediately began to calm him down, saying that he could explain everything. But the lady could not tolerate such behavior, and hit the main character in the face with all her might, shouting that he would explain everything to Satan. From the incredible force of the blow, Jin Wuzhu flew several tens of meters away and hit the wall, creating a huge crater. Also, Shunqing noticed that her hand was burning with blue flames, and she became incredibly strong. Experiencing severe pain, the guy gradually began to get up and asked her not to worry, because he could explain everything. In general, he said that she ate half of the fire grass that the Lord asked him to find, and plus, he helped her heal her wounds, so her body underwent these changes. Shunqing continued to not believe in the heavenly kingdom, and also did not believe that the Lord existed, and believed that the main character thought that she was a small child. But it was impossible to explain that her strength had suddenly increased, and that now she was not afraid of the cold. This was indeed the case. Shunqing then began to think why she was naked, as if the guy took advantage of the fact that she was unconscious and did something bad to her. But this was not so, it was she who tried to use it to weaken the fire in her body, because she could not withstand the fire grass. As for her clothes, she herself took them off because it was hot. Suddenly, the monkey began to run somewhere, making strange sounds and attracting attention to itself. They immediately noticed that the monkey was trying to lead them away, and since Shunqing had recovered, they needed to get out of here as soon as possible. A few minutes later, they found themselves in the forest, where they were earlier. It was already light outside, and probably everyone had already learned about their disappearance, and the parents of Shunqing's family were already looking for her on the bodies. At that same second, a very loud explosion was heard, and something extremely attracted the attention of the heroes. The explosion was unusual, and with every second it was getting closer to the couple who were trying to get out of this place. Fleeing, they began to run away from the explosion in order not to fall into its epicenter and not suffer from the fire. It turned out that it was the same scoundrel who found out that the girl had the fire grass and its power came from her body. Continuing to approach, the man wanted to take away the fire grass that the main character and Shunqing had so diligently obtained. The smart guy immediately felt the aura of this scoundrel and realized that this was evil spirits. The demon ordered that the fire grass be given to him, and in this case he would be allowed to die a quick death, and without suffering. Without thinking twice, Jin Wutsu apologized, and then said that they had already eaten the fire grass, and if he wanted to take it, he could look in the toilet. But the demon was also not stupid, and understood that if he ate the fire grass, then the demon needed to eat him. This was really good news for the guy because he wanted to see how much he had improved his skills. The unsuspecting demon began to attack, using his magical abilities in full force. This was a demon of the 5 elements, and he did not understand how a mere mortal could speak to him like that. Suddenly, another guardian appeared and shouted that he would kill the demon. The demon did not like this outcome at all, and he realized that some flies were attacking him again. In fact, it was nothing for him, and he easily stopped the guard's sword. After which, using the fire fist, he began to act and tried to hit the knight. It turned out that in front of them there was a fire demon who killed their father, and they would not be people if they had not taken revenge. The mentors did not want the demon to escape, which is why they wanted to finish him off right there. Meanwhile, the surprised couple watched everything that was happening, and did not understand who these people were and why they were flying, but they had a desire to watch this show. The demon immediately realized that the monk he killed was the father of one of the attackers. Thanks to his flesh and blood, he was able to cultivate, and he should wait a little to take part in this. The guards were not going to let the demon escape, and were going to finish him off in the forest to free this world from such a scoundrel. Using hurricane and thunder, the girl began her attack on the demonic creature. Peals of hurricane and thunder instantly fell on the scoundrel, preventing him from moving. Helping each other, the guards thought that this demon was in their hands, after which they began to use the following spells, called thunder and hardening. Watching everything that was happening, the demon believed that this was a truly excellent performance, which is why he even planned to leave their bodies intact. Instantly, the demon used a crushing blow called Raging Flame to rain down flames on the attacking guards. At the same time, the hero understood that this demon was really very strong, because he was able to smash everything around him to pieces. The guards were almost crushed, because after just one incredibly strong blow, they absolutely could not resist anymore, and were ready to lose in this fight. Turning to Jin Wuzhu, he said that now they will be the next to fight. Turning to Shunqing, the hero said that she should find a place and hide somewhere. The girl, in turn, asked her savior to be more careful. The merciless Hellspawn believed that hiding was useless, and he was still going to kill the two of them. The hero, in turn, was not so simple, and hit the demon with all his strength, shouting to him to taste this kick. The nimble creature was able to get to its feet, and was not even particularly damaged by the strong blow. The speed was indeed quite good, however, he did not have time to play with an ordinary person. Wishing the hero only death, the scoundrel continued his attack and used magical abilities to end the life of Jin Woo-tsu. Two powerful magicians clashed in a duel, using their most powerful techniques to fight. When suddenly, using a furious fist, Jin Woo-tsu made the demon panic as the creature began to experience severe pain from the blow. Such a blow was truly unexpected for him, because he could not even imagine that an ordinary person would be so strong. It turned out that half of the fire grass and the 7th level actually made him much stronger. Suddenly, the demon objected, saying that the fire grass was so unusual that it allowed some person to see his second form. After which, the demon began to transform into its second form, and shouted that it recognized the strength of man, but now he would die a terrible death. The straight guy didn't care about the second form, and he started using his furious fist again. But this blow was completely useless, and the demon was easily able to parry it. The stunned guy could not understand how this was possible, and how it could happen, because he had become very fast. The difference between a demon and a human was huge, and the taste would be even better if he first took the life of the main character and then fried him a little. Jin Woo-tsu was also cunning, and remembered that he had unusual techniques in his arsenal that he could use. Then he decided to use the same magic rope that he had recently received in the Heavenly Kingdom. Meanwhile, the guards continued to watch the battle, and did not understand what kind of person this was, because he not only managed to dislodge the demonic form of this creature, but also possesses such an unsurpassed weapon. They really didn't understand who it was because he didn't have a demonic spirit, but if he was a monk, then they must have heard about him before. In any case, the demon should have known about the golden ribbon, because this treasure could bind demons stronger than him. And now, Jin Woo-tsu wanted to deal an even greater blow to the arrogant demon that dared to attack ordinary people. The demon literally started begging for mercy, and screamed that they could talk, and also begged for mercy. But it was already too late, and the main character used an ability called Mountain Shift. Thus, he hit the creature with all his might in order to defeat it, and the demon no longer caused harm to anyone. The blow was indeed an incredible force, because only with its help the messenger of hell was defeated. In turn, the hero realized that he had almost used up all his chi, so he must have already died. At the same time, Shenqing continued to watch this fight, and realized that Jin Woo-tsu had won the fight. Suddenly, the girl noticed that there were enemies behind the guy and shouted to him to be careful. It turned out that the demon had not actually died, and used separation magic. Thus, the fiery silhouette began to instantly attack the defenseless guy, expecting that he would not be able to resist. Without thinking twice, the hero jumped into the sky, realizing that he needed to end this battle. He began to call on his sickle. I understand that it was the Lord who gave this weapon to him. Because of this, the hero decided that he should rely on the lunar sickle to complete the battle he had begun and win it. Having made the blow, Jin Woo-tsu wanted to wait for the outcome of it, because he did not understand what effect this blow would have on the demon. In any case, this boulder sickle is only enough for one blow of the flame, and now he can only rely on himself. Suddenly, the demon shouted that among people, Jin Woo-tsu was the strongest, because rarely did anyone bring him to such a state. But now, at the end of the day, people are just people, and he has taken on his true demonic form, and the only way for him is to die. Wishing only the death of the hero, the demon, using its third form, began to attack. The alarmed guy thought that this was really unexpected, because the demon had become very strong and looked like a monster. Meanwhile, events took place in the heavenly realm, and June communicated with the monkey, asking if he was okay. All this time it was very difficult for her to restrain her strength, but now she can help the main character. In any case, the monkey asked not to rush him, because several hundred years had already passed. And if there is at least one monkey next to Jin Woo-tsu, then he will send an artifact of heaven there. And now they will see how strong this so-called friend of Jin Woo-tsu can become. In order to help him, the Monkey King sent his staff, borrowing it for the upcoming battle. In the real world, the battle continued, and the guy was in incredible pain after colliding with the demon. Using his third form, the demon was amazed that an ordinary person was still alive after his crushing blow. The creature could not understand how he came out, as if he was using some magical treasure again. But this was not surprising, because the hero did not use his magic. This demon was simply too weak to kill a person like him. The flame demon clearly did not like this statement, which is why he shouted that he would now definitely kill him, and began to use deadly flames. Fearing for Jin Wuzu's life, Shunqing began to scream and was about to help him. At that very second, the sacred staff of the Monkey King arrived on Earth, and was ready to help the hero win this fight. As soon as the staff landed on the ground, there was an incredible explosion that destroyed everything in its path. As soon as this happened, the guy immediately felt a very powerful aura that was very nearby. Even the demon could not understand how this was possible, because such a weapon would be owned by the great sage. It was indeed a golden stick, the weapon used by the Monkey King. Even the main character was surprised, because he couldn't even imagine where the golden stick came from. This meant that Jin Wuzu was knowledgeable enough to recognize his precious weapon. Hearing this, the hero was extremely surprised, because he did not expect that the monkey could also speak, and even thought that it was a monster. This behavior was indeed very rude of him because he is the Monkey King, and the old woman Lao Jun knew that he would meet a strong enemy and asked to borrow the golden stick. If this stick recognizes him, then Jin Wuzu will be able to defeat the enemy with just one blow. The hero, in turn, had a question about what would happen if the golden stick did not recognize him. In fact, nothing like that will happen. At best it's a splitting of the arteries, at worst it's a dispersion of the soul. The consequences were truly terrible, and the hero was in a panic because he did not understand what he should do to make the stick recognize him. Meanwhile, the demon thought that this guy was playing God, which is why he started attacking him again so that he would finally die. In any case, the guy realized that he shouldn't care now, because he would die anyway, and he should take the risk. In an instant, he grabbed a magical golden stick to use its power to defeat the impudent demon. The effect was not long in coming, and the wand began to glow with magical flame. After which, an explosion of unreal power immediately began to occur, as if the wand realized who its true owner was. This explosion was heard even in the heavens, and the guards felt a flow of energy that was dissipated in another world. Xiang Yang immediately realized that this was the power of the Monkey King Wukong. Chang'e also sensed that it was the scent of Jin Wuzu, who had finally gained true power. All the deities felt this smell. Jun also realized that the guy had coped with the task. Rejoicing at this outcome, Jin Wuzu realized that the wand had indeed recognized him. The arrogant demon still wanted to destroy an ordinary person, and was going to tear him apart with this golden stick of Wukong. The smart young man did not even think about giving up. With all his strength he jumped to the maximum height to deliver a crushing blow. Waving a magical golden stick, he was going to rid this world of such a creature as this demon. As soon as the blow happened, the demon didn't even understand anything right away, he only felt a slight tingling in the head area. After which, all the power fell on him, and he began to fall to the floor, feeling that he could no longer resist such force. Although it was quite difficult for the hero to use this wand, he easily coped with this task and won. It turned out that this magical golden stick transfers the power of the one it absorbed. This surge of strength actually made Jin Wuzu feel much stronger. The old demon was outraged that an ordinary person could absorb all of his flames. But also, he not only absorbed the flame, but also began to use it against his own opponent. The frightened demon began to feel violent pain and screamed because he was in pain and hot. All this happened because the demon's mother had to teach him in childhood that it was bad to play with fire, and if he doesn't listen to his mother, he will wet the whole bed, which is what happened after losing this fight. The lifeless demon could no longer move. Now he was truly dead. Watching the demon, Jin Wuzu understood that he could deceive him and pretend to be dead. It actually happened. The demon retained his powers and used. Suddenly, behind someone began to call the demon, turning to him. It was the main character, and he wanted to use another artifact that was previously given to him. With the help of this artifact, he could capture the demon inside the container that was in his hands. The magic pumpkin is truly an amazing artifact, because it could absorb even such a strong demon into itself. Finally, the demon was expelled from this world, and imprisoned in the golden pumpkin. Although it was just a line, it was really good against weak monsters, so this demon should stay there. Realizing that he had finally won, the hero was already thinking about when he would finally meet the Celestials. Suddenly, strange feelings began to overcome him, as if his strength was leaving him. Crouching in pain, he gradually began to fall to the ground, feeling his weakness and infirmity. The friends immediately saw Jin Woo-Zhu fall and unconscious. In an instant they began to run to the hero to help him in such a hopeless situation. It turned out that he had taken the flame of the spiritual grass, but the battle with the succubus was so intense that it affected his spiritual energy. It is expected that his internal organs will be burned in no time. The frightened girl began to beg the creature to help the guy and save him from imminent death. Even though this man stole the heavenly grass, he is still the benefactor of their clan, but he was able to defeat this succubus, and he is also a friend. The forest spirit began to transform into a girl in order to help Jin Woo-Zhu survive. After all, only the creature's own blood can suppress the inflammation, and if he allows him to drink the blood, he can avoid the pain of burning inside. Since this was the first time the spirit had done this, he asked the hero to be as gentle as possible. Without thinking twice, the guy decided to bite the forest spirit to taste its blood. The embarrassed spirit shouted that she should do it more slowly, because if he takes too much blood, she will die. Such a sight was indeed very shameful, and Lin Huang could not look at what was happening calmly. Meanwhile, Shen Qing ran to the scene to see if Jin Woo-Zhu had survived. But what she saw really shocked her, because she did not expect to see something like that in the forest. The hero continued to drink the blood of the forest spirit, and the spirit screamed for him to continue drinking the blood. Some time later, events continued to occur in the city hospital. The main character was lying in bed and survived such a difficult battle with the help of the forest spirit. He literally couldn't believe it. When he fought with those monsters, he didn't receive any serious wounds, and as soon as he was hit once, he immediately ended up in the hospital. Unable to tolerate this, Shen Qing immediately gagged him with an orange, because no one allowed this guy to do such shameful things in the forest. At that time, he was not even conscious, and besides, that spirit is not human, so it was unknown why the girl was jealous. Then Shen Qing began to shout that she was not jealous, and Lin Huang calmed them down, saying that they should not make noise in the hospital. Suddenly, someone gradually began to open the door to the chambers to go inside. These were the same monks who fought the demon in the forest. They wanted to talk to Jin Woo-Zhu. The smart guy immediately recognized them and wanted to understand why they needed him. Shen Qing also recognized them immediately, because she realized that these were the same people who could fly. One of the guards suggested that these two girls were the wives of Jin Woo-Zhu. Such a statement greatly embarrassed Lin Huang, because it was too early to be wives. And Shen Qing explained that they should open their eyes wider and look carefully, because who would even want to become the wife of this dumbass? Realizing that he needed to talk to them, the hero asked the girls to go out to talk with the monks in private. As she left the room, the girls said that they shouldn't do anything strange here. As soon as the door closed, the rank 8 followers of the Wind School introduced themselves. The girl's name was Ziling, and the guy's name was Pan Kai. They thanked the top-rank immortal for saving them. Hearing what they called him, Jin Woo-Zhu was surprised by this turn of events, because he understood that they were clearly mistaken. Pan Kai turned to the immortal, saying that there was no need to be modest, because on that day he showed what he was capable of, defeating the evil spirits. Besides, he had in his hands the treasure of the Celestials, the younger generation, although not so wise, but they are definitely not our wrong. Ziling also believed that the master had always said that in the human world there were many free immortals who did not have titles but could freely practice their magic. Realizing the hopelessness of this situation, Jin Woo-Zhu came to agree with this status, and since he cannot explain, then he should no longer remember this. Then he exclaimed that he was hiding very well, and did not expect that they would be able to reveal him, because he always kept in the shadows, and did not tell anyone about it. Upon learning that the immortal had saved them, the master ordered them to hand over 3 life extension pills, a sign of gratitude, and hoped that the hero would not object. Having bowed, Pan Kai also said that the master invites the hero to visit the 8th Wind School, and when he gets better, but now he should rest, and they were not going to disturb him anymore. The hero could not even imagine that in this era there are schools looking for a path to immortality. Even he has now become immortal for them. If they had learned about the existence of the heavenly kingdom, it is unknown what would have happened then. Meanwhile, events continued to occur in the heavenly kingdom. The deities had already learned to play games on the phone, and were glad that they had a new entertainment. Jin Wuzhu decided to apologize, saying that back then, due to unforeseen circumstances, he used the fire immortality grass, so he could not bring it. In fact, there was nothing wrong with it, Jun said. The fire he subdued has the same composition as the fire immortality herb. It can be used as a substitute for alchemical material. In addition, the fact that he sacrificed the medicine to save others shows that he is a good person. Suddenly, someone exclaimed that Lao Jun should not shout here. It was the Monkey King who was listening to this entire conversation. After all, as it turned out, the materials she needed were in that fire. The fire grass of immortality and the like were just a cover, otherwise he would not have given him the golden stick to help. The surprised guy immediately recognized that the great sage equal to heaven, Sun Quan, was now standing in front of him. Surprised by this nickname, Sun Quan was amazed that someone would call him that because everyone here likes to call him the victorious Buddha. In any case, the guy thanked the sage for lending him his staff and polished it until it shined. Suddenly, Sun Quan said that the hero can keep it because he still doesn't have much chance to fight in the heavenly realm, but he is still young, and every time he uses the golden stick, it will cause significant damage his body. We must not forget about this. And if he really wants to repay the Monkey King, then he better become stronger to fight him, because in the heavenly world it is difficult to find a worthy opponent. Realizing that this was indeed a very good chance, Jin Wuzhu was happy about this offer and wanted to become stronger in order to fight Sun Quan. Unexpectedly, Lao Jun exclaimed for the hero to forget about the Monkey King. After all, since he helped her obtain the material as I promised, he can take one of the tablets from the Tushita Palace as a reward. A little embarrassed, the boy came closer to ask if there was that secret medicine in this palace. Some time later, events continued to occur in the heavenly palace, but night had already fallen. The joyful guy understood that in any case he had nothing to do today, so he could go to the palace and see Sister Chang'e. Looking at the medicine, he also could not even imagine that it really existed. Suddenly, looking back, he noticed something amazing, a certain silhouette that crept nearby. An unknown girl was running nearby and was about to enter the building of the heavenly temple. The guy couldn't believe his eyes because he saw that this girl looked like an ordinary person. But still, she didn't seem like a good person, and if she tried to harm Sister Chang'e, it would be a big problem. It was also unknown why this girl was so fast, and she was not visible at all. Hearing the scream, the hero realized that Sister Chang'e might be in danger, and she urgently needed help. Throwing open the door of the temple, the guy ran out to help and wanted to overthrow the impudent girl. It turned out that they were performing some strange ritual, and the girl was in a difficult situation. Chang'e was very busy and could not be distracted by visitors. The stunned guy couldn't believe his eyes, because he couldn't even imagine what these girls were doing here. A little embarrassed, Chang'e decided to ask the hero why he came, because she learned this massage technique at the Chan'an school, and Nensha says that she really likes it. The frightened guy realized that Nensha, a Taoist deity of protection and dragon slayer god originating from Buddhist mythology, was officially revered under the titles of Marshal of the Central Altar and Third Prince of the Lotus. First, the deity needed to get dressed in order to continue the dialogue. The hero could never even imagine that Nensha was a girl, but since the Lord loved women, it was nothing strange that Nensha was a girl, but in fact it was nonsense, and the deity did not understand that she was a girl. Jin Wuzhu understood that this is really nonsense, and Nensha is a woman because a man cannot have such a body. Then Chang'e decided to interfere in the conversation and explain what happened. When Nensha's father destroyed his body, he used lotus leaves and flowers to restore the human body. However, because he used one lotus root instead of 2 lotus flowers, he restored Nensha to a female body, but he is a man at heart. And now it looks like Nensha is having problems with being confused with a girl, so he needs to be more careful. Nensha is also Chang'e's best friend. Due to the fact that his body was made of lotus, there are no forbidden places for him in the kingdom. From time to time he comes to this palace to play. Then the heroes assumed that Chang'e had made this guy her best friend, but he seemed completely unimportant to her. A little embarrassed, the girl exclaimed that Jin Wuzhu was also very important to her. Agreeing, the guy believed her and asked how she liked the phone she was using, because if she had questions, she shouldn't be embarrassed to ask them. For a deity, this treasure of the human world is very interesting, and she did not expect that the human world would undergo such radical changes since her ascension: flying iron birds, towering penthouses, all kinds of delicacies. It's just that Chang'e could never see these things up close. Then the guy decided to give the medicine that turns a deity into an ordinary one. He received it from Sister June. This medicine can turn an immortal into a mortal. Chang'e knew that this was a prohibited drug in the heavenly kingdom, and if it was discovered, the guy would be punished. However, if no one said anything about it, then no one would know. But Nensha didn't understand why he shouldn't tell anyone about this, because he heard everything. Then the guy didn't say that making a promise is one of the romantic traits of a real man, and really, he doesn't want to be a real man. These words really touched the deity, and he realized that he needed to listen to this advice. At that very moment Nensha exclaimed that he would keep this secret a secret. Smiling, the boy meanwhile thought that he did not expect that Nensha was so naive and so easy to deceive. They continued their conversation, talking about how even ordinary immortals cannot enter the palace, so even if she disappears for a day or two, she will still not be discovered. The girl has been locked in the palace for tens of thousands of years all this time, and if she can be free even for a moment, she will not have any regrets, no matter what the cost. Giving the girl his hand, Jin Wutsu asked her to be extremely careful. Chang'e couldn't believe her eyes that she was actually leaving this palace. Turning to Nensha, the hero asked how about going to the mortal world for a couple of days with them. But the deity was not interested in visiting the mortal world, so they must go only together. At that same second, the hero discovered that Nenshi had suddenly grown a flower on his head. This really made Chang'e laugh a lot, because when Nensha lies, lotus flowers bloom on his head, and he really wants to go down to earth and have fun. The deity continued to object, saying that he has a lot to do. There are many hidden eyes in the heavenly realm, so they should go already so that no trouble arises. Some time later, events continued to occur on the teleportation platform of the heavenly realm. It had indeed been a long time since she left the palace, and she even felt that the air outside was warmer than in the palace. The heroes only asked the girl to be careful so that they would not be discovered by other immortals. Suddenly, someone turned to the main character, calling his name. It was the heavenly guardian, who was very happy to have met Jin Wuzhu here. The guys were really very scared by this, because he thought that Xiang Yang knew this celestial being. The guard, who did not understand anything, wanted to understand what was going on, because the video, like an ordinary person, was scared. Still afraid, Jin decided to ask if Xiang Yang knew this celestial, but there are so many celestials in the heavenly realm, and they all look the same, so he cannot know them all. It turned out that the guard actually wanted the hero to bring him goods, such as luxury nursery, dog shower gel and classic teething gift packaging. Next time you should not forget to bring them from the human world. Also, the celestial did not really like the mint in the shower gel, which is why he asked to take a different one next time. Chang'e, who did not understand anything, could not believe that Xiang Yang did not recognize her. This was really good news because this guy is just a passionate dog lover. He knows everything about dog products. However, he seems to have a bad memory for faces. And this meant that they needed to quickly get into the human world. Because if they are discovered, there will be great danger, which is why it is necessary to descend as quickly as possible. Some time later, events continued in the real world. People were amazed at the girl's appearance, because she looked like a celestial being, as if she had stepped out of a painting. The frightened goddess wanted to understand why everyone in the human world was looking at her like that. The reason was that she is very beautiful, which is why she attracts so much attention. It seems that they need to find a way to make her more invisible. Then they decided to go to a clothing store in order to get a new look for Chang'e. The clothes really amazed the celestial being, because there was much more of it than she saw on the phone. The kind manager greeted her clients and offered to let them choose suitable clothes. With a wink, the hero said that this was not necessary, and that he should just pack all the clothes that Chang'e would like. The manager was shocked by this request, but was going to fulfill it anyway. All the people were stunned by such appearance, because this girl was the most beautiful of all whom they had ever seen. They were also given a very unusual service. All the clothes they chose will be free, but they need to do a small favor. It was necessary to take photographs for the store to attract customers to buy clothes. Thus, the deity and the ordinary person were dressed in very expensive and stylish clothes. Now they looked chic. They wore a variety of different looks, and also experimented with appearances to take as many unusual photographs as possible. Of course, with these advertising photos, their clothes will definitely sell, the manager thought. Suddenly, Chang'e began to call Jin Wuzhu to help her. She needed a little help with her clothes because she couldn't do it herself. Such a request greatly embarrassed the hero, and he asked what happened. It turned out that the zipper on her dress was stuck and she could not remove the dress, which is why she asked for help to unzip it. Fortunately, he easily coped with this task and unbuttoned his dress. But in fact, he didn't succeed right away, because it really didn't want to unbutton. The dress was very small, and Chang'e even thought that she had gained weight. After some time, he finally managed to unbutton the dress, and everything was fine. He just needed to add a little more force. All this time the manager listened to their conversation and realized that these young people were very brave. Go outside. All the guys paid attention to the celestial being who came down from heaven. Looking at her clothes, the girl assumed that this dress was really too short, and everyone was staring at her. But Jin Wuzhu decided to reassure her, because in their world such a dress length is completely normal, and besides, it would be a pity if they hid such a beautiful body. A little embarrassed, the goddess decided to ask if the guy liked these clothes, but in fact, no matter what she was wearing, he liked everything. Although he spoke very beautifully, Chang'e was in no hurry to draw conclusions about this guy, and did not believe him. Suddenly, a guy came up and said that he was a talent hunter from an entertainment company, after which he asked if the girl was interested in show business, and if so, the company wanted to help her develop in this area. At that very moment, Jin Wuzhu came to the defense of the celestial being, saying that she did not accept the invitation. The impudent guy just exclaimed that he was talking to a girl, and then asked who this guy was. The main character said that he is the agent of this miss, and plans all her affairs. The girl also confirmed this and said that she obeys her agent in everything. This really angered the enterprising guy because he realized that he had been beaten to it. Even the hero couldn't expect that they would meet the talent hunter. If Sister Chang'e entered this realm, she would definitely become a superstar. And then, as her manager, he could make a lot of money. Looking at her agent, the girl understood that he again began to think about some strange things. Meanwhile, Lin Huang and Shen Qing were heading to the store and were planning to hurry up. The embarrassed girl did not understand why they needed to go together to buy a gift for that fool. But Lin Huang was against such statements because he saved her and also received severe injuries, which is why he needs to be thanked. In any case, Shen Qing saw no reason to thank this insolent person because he was doing strange things to her in the forest. Suddenly, they discovered something very surprising on the street, because they saw Jin Wuzhu with some girl while they were walking down the street. In addition, they noticed that this girl is really very beautiful. This behavior really made the girls very angry because first he did this to them and now he is hanging out with another girl because now it looks like he has fully recovered. Meanwhile, the hero decided to ask his sister if she wanted to go to university with him. Although she didn't know what a university was, it didn't matter where Jin Wuzhu went, she would go there too. Suddenly, a girl came up and asked what would happen if he went to die. These were the same girls, and the hero immediately wanted to know where they came from. Shen Qing was at first demonstrably indignant and asked if they were interfering with their so-called date. The hero immediately began to make excuses, saying that his cousin was with him now. Suddenly, Chang'e decided to ask who these girls were who approached them. Coming closer, the friends noticed how beautiful the so-called cousin was. They immediately started asking her a lot of questions because her skin was perfect and they wanted to know what kind of skincare products she used because she looked like some kind of star. Laughing, the guy asked if they seriously thought that Chang'e was his girlfriend. Meanwhile, someone was watching everything that was happening and saw who it really was. The creature felt that the celestial being was nearby, and besides, she was now very weak. The demon began to think that today is indeed a very good day. If she can eat her, then their Witch Claw clan will be able to revive. Some time later, events continued to occur at the university. The girls talked to each other. The hero was indignant that they bought a lot of different things, and the bags were very heavy. But Shen Qing thought that these complaints were useless, because it was an honor for him to go shopping with the three beauties. Laughing, the guy said that he only saw two beauties here, Sister Chang'e and Lin, and the third beauty was nowhere to be found. This enraged the girl even more, and she literally began to strangle the hero, shouting that he was wrong. Unexpectedly, the guy turned around, because he sensed a dark aura that was nearby. And it was really so, the witch flew incredibly close and wanted to do a terrible thing to them. This whole plan was conceived in order to steal the celestial being and kill him in order to gain all his power. Angry, he immediately realized that even in this city there was also an evil spirit. The girls were simply shocked by this turn of events, and they ordered Jin Woo-tsu to save the poor sister. Although the guy's flying ability was not that good, he still had to use it. Raising his hand, he immediately began to call upon the golden stick to help him in battle. Suddenly, looking at his hands, he realized that he had used up all his spiritual power last time. Unexpectedly, an old man came up behind me and said that this was indeed a very familiar feeling, because he smelled the scent of the golden staff and was not mistaken, which made him realize that Jin Woo-tsu was the new owner of the legendary golden staff. The main character immediately realized that this old man was a local deity, and asked him to tell him where the nest of this evil spirit with wings was located. The local deity said that Jin Woo-tsu was truly worthy of being the owner of this staff because he was as impolite as its true owner. However, he was still going to say that these two were from the witch's claw. The frightened guy understood that he needed to hurry, apologized for his tactlessness, and then asked to be told in more detail about the witch's claw. It turned out that these are evil spirits like her who live together. Their nest is very well hidden. If he does not have such keen vision and fine hearing as the evil spirits, then it will be very difficult to find him. The elder also mentioned that one of the evil dogs is from the Zhao family. Some time later, events continued to occur in the Zhao family's villa. The sister played billiards with her brother, and had no idea what would happen next. Mr. Zhao was happy to play with his sister because she is truly a professional. A caring sister said that she heard that her brother was recently offended by one person. This was indeed the case, although his brother admitted that this time he was inattentive and nothing more, but if they meet again, he will show him how strong he is. At that very second, someone began to approach them and said that the door to their house was open. The appearance of this guy was truly surprising for the Zhao family. It turned out that it was Jin Woo-tsu who asked Zhao if he really wanted to teach him a lesson. The angry guy didn't like this very much, which is why he shouted that his brother went to hell, and he didn't have to look for him, because he himself came to die. Turning to the girls, the hero asked them to hide in order to remind this impudent man of past events. There is no need to worry in this case, because the guy is really extremely strong, and has improved his abilities since their last fight. The brave guy was still going to use his new kicking technique, and he used a powerful blow, called a testicle blow, which could defeat any male enemy. The blow was indeed extremely strong, which is why the enemy was defeated after a single move. In fact, Jin Woo-tsu did not come here to fight, but decided to ask for help to find the witch's claw nest, and later he will still be able to remove all his losses. Zhao didn't like this behavior very much, because he couldn't even imagine that after such a reception the guy would also ask him for help. At that same second, someone threw a billiard ball, and it flew right near the brave man. This ball was really thrown with incredible force, because as soon as it stopped flying, it got stuck in the wall. It turned out that it was Sister Zhao who threw the ball to scare the main character. After all, she realized that this is the man who beat her brother, and it seems that he is really strong. Realizing that he no longer wanted to fight, the guy began to talk about how they really were a very big family, with many connections. They should just help him find the witch's claw. But the girl didn't think so. Only if he made her laugh, she would help in the search. Jin Woo-tsu realized that this would not work, because even if it was for the sake of saving Sister Chang'e, he still cannot sell his body. Besides, he held back for a long time, and is afraid that if they start playing, then Sister Chang'e may already be killed. Suddenly, the little sister began to attack the main character, shouting that she was not as weak as her younger brother. Using his incredible agility, he immediately dodged the extremely powerful attack. Immediately after this, another immediate attack followed, which was very targeted. Because of her, Jin Woo-tsu even crashed into a wall, and no longer felt so confident. Although he does not fight with girls, for the sake of Sister Chang'e he is ready to make an exception in this situation, because he decided to use this trump card to find out who would win. The impudent sister was also not against the fight, and was ready to measure her strength with such an opponent. Having clashed in a duel, they struck each other to see who would win this fight. The blows were indeed very strong, and an ordinary person could not survive them. The hero even admitted that his sister really has very good fighting skills. The brother didn't like all this because this guy is a real problem, which is why they can fight him together. But this proposal did not suit the older sister, because it would be dishonest. Although she was careless, they are still the Zhao family, and must always keep their word. The lair is located on the top of Mount Huey, and there, whether he can find Chang'e depends only on him. Laughing, the guy felt awkward because he realized that she had to tell secret information, and began to apologize if he had harmed the friendly relations between the clans. In fact, the relationship between evil spirits is not at all different from the relationship between people, and the strongest survive, and they, the Zhao family, do not need to reckon with these nonentities. In any case, the hero was grateful for the fight, and said that if Miss needed help, she could contact him at any time. Suddenly, Shen Qing decided to interrupt them and shouted that they urgently needed to leave in order to save Sister Chang'e. The impudent hero shouted that his name was Jin Wuzhu, and when they had free time, they should drink coffee together. It was very noticeable that Miss really liked this young man, which is why she remembered this name. Some time later, events continued to occur on Mount Huey. Inspecting the area, the company realized that this was where their lair was located, and now they needed to climb the mountain. The determined Shen Qing exclaimed that there was no point in waiting, and that she should go and pluck these chickens. But the hero was against it and asked to wait because he wanted to say something. Because actually the hero said earlier that they won't fight them and he doesn't want to get the girls into trouble. In any case, they did not want to be a burden, and were going to help in this difficult competition and fight. After a moment, Lin Huang decided to calm her friend down and asked her to let the guy go alone, to give him a chance to prove himself to her, and reveal his true potential. This really hurt the girl very much, and she still decided to wait here. Some time later, the hero had already climbed a tree and began to inspect the area to find Chang'e. The place was indeed very creepy, and their base was located here. At the same time, Chang'e was held hostage by them, and could not even resist because she did not have the power of the Celestials. She literally ordered the scoundrels to let her go, after which she wanted to understand what kind of place this was. It turned out that the servants transferred the celestial being to the queen, telling him that they had caught some interesting prey. Smiling, the queen immediately felt it and realized that this was truly a celestial being. Although they caught the celestial being, and she is weak, her flesh still has a miraculous effect on evil spirits. The witches were going to eat it, because this victim looked really delicious, and they were no longer able to restrain themselves. Chang'e decided to object and shouted that she was a deity and they should fear heavenly punishment. But the queen knew that celestials were not allowed to descend into this world, and she came down here of her own free will, and even if she was eaten here, no one would look for her anyway. The goddess continued to shout that they would regret this, and realized that Jin Wuzhu would soon come to save her. The cunning goddess wanted to use her divine body as a mother to give birth to her daughter. She would hatch in her belly and then come out. Chang'e couldn't understand how this was possible, because they were all women, and she wouldn't be able to give birth to a child. It turned out that they were evil spirits, and even if they were women, they could still reproduce, and they were going to use something very unusual.